This is Atomic Shinobi and today I am going to narrate first part of what if Naruto and Sasuke were forced to rely on each other. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
He had nearly reached his breaking point. He was miserable all his life. No friends for 8 years. 8 years without a family. Only 3 people had shown him anything but hatred in 8 years. Too many times to count, he was beaten to within an inch of his life for 8 years. Living in an orphanage for 6 years while receiving worse treatment than the other children. 2 years of living in an apartment by myself, where I was robbed and vandalized almost daily. His monthly stipend from the Hokage was insufficient to cover food and rent, so he had to live off the trash for 2 years. 3 years of the other children his age making fun of him. 4 years of pure and utter hell, despite the fact that he was the only one who could prevent the Kyuubi from destroying Konoha. Though he was unaware of this at the time. The fact that he had no idea why was the worst part of it all. Why they treated him like the dirtiest person on the planet. Why he would be beaten and jumped at random until he prayed for his death. Why no one would help him at all, not even the one person he believed genuinely cared about him. Yes, he could appear joyful in front of others. The satisfaction of knowing that those bastards were getting to him was something he would never give them. He acted as though it didn't bother him, smiled, and held his head high, but behind closed doors, he was collapsing. 3 individuals in his life did not publicly mistreat him. The third Hokage, but he was also constantly too busy to be particularly kind. Amino Iruka, his academy instructor for the past few months, was also never particularly pleasant on the outside. Before things got out of control, he would at least stop the other students and teachers. But Hyuga Hinata, a girl his age with lavender hair and white eyes, was the only person who had ever shown him even the slightest kindness. The girl once attempted to stop some older kids from beating him a few years ago, but an older teen with the same white eyes and black hair drugged her away. He didn't know his name, but he assumed it was another Hyuga. Since that day, Hinata had at least made an effort to treat him with kindness, but she was never successful. Perhaps it was because of the other students or some arbitrary Hyuga, but she was never able to speak to him in the way she wanted to. As if he desired it. As the days passed, the suffering persisted, and young Naruto maintained his false smile in the hopes that things would improve quickly. All of this persisted until one devoted day, October 10th, to be precise, when Naruto made the decision to attend the village's annual festival in an attempt to have some fun for once on his birthday. He thought that everyone would be too engrossed in the celebrations to give a damn about him, even though he wasn't entirely sure what the festival was about. Something about a fox or something. He therefore dressed up and went out to have fun as soon as the festival started. Naruto felt a sharp pain on the back of his head as he was wandering around Konoha, trying to decide what he wanted to do. The angry villagers hurled the beer bottle and yelled, "What the fuck do you think you're doing here, demon?" Naruto began to flee from the attacker, just as he had in the past. Running as fast as he could, he yelled, "Stop it, I didn't do anything to any of you," as the crowd behind him grew. A Chunin who looked to be around 30 yelled, "You killed my wife, demon. You've tortured our families 9 years too long," as he withdrew a kunai and hurled it at Naruto. Naruto was fortunate enough to avoid said kunai. Despite being hit by rocks and beer bottles, Naruto kept running until he eventually came to a stop in a clearing outside the village but still inside its walls. "Huh. Looks like this is the end for you, fox demon," exclaimed a man in the crowd, who turned out to be a teenage shinobi. Naruto said, "I'm not a demon though, I have never hurt any," as the shinobi punched him in the face, sending him to the ground. "Shut up. You killed my father, my mother told me it was you." "No I didn't, I promise." The teenager then approached and kicked him in the ribs, causing him to roll across the floor. This must have been the signal for the rest of the mob to begin, because they all began beating on him. Some even began stabbing him with kunai and kitchen knives. Naruto began to sob uncontrollably before the world went dark because he was certain that this time would be the last time he died. Suddenly, he was standing in what looked like a dungeon or prison, ankle deep in water. "You are angry. You wish for blood. This is good. Embrace the bloodlust." A large pair of bloodshot eyes and savage-looking teeth appeared from behind the vertical bars that separated him from the complete darkness, and he looked around, trying to figure out where he was. The voice was more sinister than anything he had ever heard. "Rejoice in the hatred that courses through your veins. I will give you a small taste of my power. Destroy the ones who harm you. We will meet again soon." Naruto abruptly found himself back on the ground, still being beaten, but unable to feel the current blows, and the wounds he had previously sustained no longer hurt. He had a sense of power. He had a lethal feeling. He knew he was stronger than ever, and the expressions on the faces of the villagers told him so, too. "What are you? They cried as they began to back away, staring at him in utter horror. Naruto looked down at the crowd of villagers with slitted red eyes and said, "I have been called many things, death, terror, a nightmare, a demon, the Kyuubi, but today, you shall know me as the judge, jury, and executioner." Looking back, the villagers experienced a sense of murderous intent unlike anything they had ever experienced. It was so potent that some people fainted and most just urinated their pants. As Naruto's features grew more savage, a red shroud of chakra had developed around him, taking the form of a fox with one tail. While the majority of the shinobi remained, all of the civilians who hadn't fainted began to flee in the hopes of surviving. A chunin in the group went through some hand seals and yelled, "See, you're nothing but a damn demon. Now die." Kaden. Fireball Jutsu. He exhaled after taking a deep breath, then blasted a ball of fire in Naruto's direction. Naruto simply stood there while the fireball engulfed him. The chunin exclaimed, "Yes, I did it. I finally killed the demon child." As Naruto was rolled over by the fireball. Hokage. "Sama. Do you feel that?" exclaimed an Anbu wearing a dog mask that abruptly entered the Hokage's office. "Yes, Kakashi. Gather everyone you can and meet me there. I fear the foolish villagers may have finally pushed Naruto-kun too far." The Anbu, now known as Kakashi, shunned away and said, "Hi." The elderly Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen, thought as he got up and leapt out the window toward the enormous chakra source, "I sure hope the seal is still intact, and that those fools haven't doomed us all." As the fireball cooled around him, Naruto's demonic voice growled, "Pathetic." The chunin who had thrown the fireball now threw out all of his bowls and began to retreat before collapsing. How the hell?" he asked, still attempting to retreat. After taking a deep breath, Naruto exhaled and blew out a stream of fire the size of a Greyhound bus, saying, "Now let me show you a real fireball." The fireball guy and half of the other people who weren't fast enough to move out of the way were encircled by the fireball. Another shinobi yelled, "What the fuck are you? Why, don't you remember, I'm a demon, you're the one who called me that just a moment ago." Before the shinobi could even respond, Naruto threw out his left arm, revealing a red chakra arm that seized the man by the head and squeezed, saturating the surrounding area with blood. The others turned tail and fled after the man's body fell to the ground, indicating that they had had enough. Naruto said, "I don't think so." A wall of flames erupted from the ground, obstructing the shinobi's escape route. "Consider this your payback for 8 years of hell." One of the shinobi in the group yelled, "Please don't, we're sorry." A few of the remaining individuals fainted as Naruto's chakra and killing intent spiked even higher. "Were you sorry all those times when you were beating me? When I prayed for death, just so the pain would stop? Fuck no. You are all pitiful excuses of life forms, and you make me sick," Naruto commanded. "But, shut your fucking mouth. You don't deserve to speak in my presence." His eyes went completely red at this point, and another tail appeared on Naruto's chakra cloak. The air surrounding Naruto then became so dense that the mob members were unable to breathe as a number of black and white balls erupted from his body and began swirling together in front of his mouth. A tiny black ball formed in front of Naruto's mouth as the other villagers watched in terror, struggling to breathe as they lost control of their bodies. Naruto swallowed the ball with a spooky grin that stretched from ear to ear. After a moment of inaction, he suddenly released a beam of the dark-looking chakra that was twice as large as his previous fireball. Beginning on one side, he swept the entire field inside his fire barrier, destroying everything within. The wall of flames subsided as soon as the dust settled, and Hiruzen leapt into the crater that had once been training ground for his clearing. He yelled, "Naruto-kun," as Naruto focused on the man. At that moment, the words, "Kaden, Fire Dragon Missile," echoed across the clearing. A boar. Masked Anbu just jumped in, and a huge fire dragon roared out of its mouth. Naruto simply extended his hand in the direction of the attack after turning from Hiruzen to the fire dragon. As the attack got closer to Naruto, Hiruzen's eyes widened, believing that the boy he had been looking at as a grandson was going to die. Before completely stopping, the fire dragon collided with Naruto's outstretched hand. This startled the boar and the Hokage, at least until the dragon turned and engulfed the Anbu. Boar's mask was all that was left of him after the fire subsided. "Gigi, I'm sorry, they tried to kill me, they made me do this," Naruto said as the chakra shroud began to fade, turning back to face the elderly Hokage. At that point, a number of additional Anbu also leapt into the clearing and threw shuriken and kunai at Naruto. All of the weapons were stopped in their tracks when the chakra surrounding him suddenly lashed out. "Leave me alone, goddammit. I don't want to kill you people, I just want to be happy." Hiruzen screamed, "Anbu, stand down. as he avoided being between Naruto and the Anbu. When an Anbu wearing a monkey mask said, "No disrespect Hokage Sama, but he is a threat, and should be killed." Hiruzen exclaimed, "I said stand down," as he let go of his own murderous intent. Fearfully, the Anbu stepped back and instantly left their fighting positions. When he saw this, Naruto's chakra cloak vanished and he collapsed to the ground, unconscious. After that, Hiruzen approached and took Naruto in his arms before turning to face the Anbu. As he and Naruto vanished in a whirlpool of leaves, he uttered the words, "Clean this mess up and then you are dismissed." Rewind. 9 years prior. One of the civilian council members exclaimed, "We should kill it now, before it has a chance to regain power and finish the job. You should know that our Yondaime was the best Fuinjutsu user in the world. There is no chance of the demon breaking out of Naruto," replied the Sandaime. "Perhaps when he becomes of age, I could train him to control the fox's power," suggested Danzo. "No, you will not turn Naruto-kun into one of your mindless root agents." "Damn," Danzo thought. Another member of the civilian council stated, "I agree with Haruno, the demon should be killed." The requests for death and imprisonment were silenced when the Sandaime yelled, "Naruto-kun will not be harmed. Our beloved Yondaime sacrificed his life and child for you and wants him seen as a hero. Yet you bastardize his desires already, instead. Furthermore, if any of you tell anyone of his tenet or heritage, you will be put to death. I want him to grow up like a normal child." At the moment, Hokage's office as he gazed at Naruto's unconscious form on the couch next to his desk, Hiruzen thought, "Oh how I wish I could have been more help to you Naruto-kun. You are a hero every day, with the blood of a Hokage inside you, yet they treat you like shit. I wish I could make it up to you. Well maybe." After an hour or so, Naruto finally started to move and then sat up. He began to cry once more and exclaimed, "Where am Gigi? Oh god, I'm sorry. I didn't want to hurt anyone but they made me. I don't even know what happened. I was just so scared, and then a scary set of eyes told me to use their power to stop the hurting." When Naruto referred to the scary set of eyes with power, Hiruzen was taken aback and wondered if he was referring to the Kyuubi. He rose from his desk and moved to sit next to Naruto on the couch. Shush, it's okay Naruto-kun. But Gigi, I killed them, so many people died because of me tonight. They deserved it for treating you the way they did, you are supposed to be a hero." "What do you mean Gigi?" Sigh. "I was going to wait until you were older, but I have some things to tell you and now seems to be a good a time as any." "What is it Gigi?" "Well, one night, 9 years ago," Hiruzen continued by explaining to Naruto what had transpired that evening, regarding his tenet, and ultimately revealing that his father was the one who had sealed the demon within him. Yes, Naruto's father was the Yondaime Hokage. Naruto fainted once more as a result of being so shocked by all of this information. Before they began discussing what Naruto now knew, Hiruzen had to wake him up for almost 20 minutes. "So, I really am a demon, like everyone said." Hiruzen stood up, went to his desk, and took out a kunai and a storage scroll, saying, "No Naruto-kun, you are not a demon, you just hold one. Watch this." After returning to Naruto, he opened the scroll and said, "You see, this is a scroll, and this kunai." He held up the kunai and said, "Is the Kyuubi." He placed the kunai on top of the scroll and used some chakra to absorb it. He held up the scroll with the word, "kunai," in the middle and asked, "So, is this now a kunai?" "No, it's still a scroll." "Exactly. Just as having a kunai sealed in the scroll doesn't make the scroll a kunai. You having a demon sealed inside of you doesn't make you a demon." With a small, sincere smile, Naruto gave the elderly man a hug and said, "Thanks Gigi." Hiruzen went to his desk, performed some hand seals, and then slammed his hand down on it. "It was your right to know, Naruto-kun. I was a fool for hiding it this long. Now before you go, I have some things for you." A chain of 3 pronged kunai now encircled a spiral, patterned chest beneath his hand. "Cool Gigi, what is that?" asked Naruto, who was staring at him. "This, Naruto-kun, is your inheritance, left to you by your father. It contains all of his jutsu scrolls, as well as the Uzumaki clan techniques. Both he and your mother left you a letter in there as well. The chest itself was designed with a seal so that no one but you and me can even touch the box, and only you can open it." Naruto stared at the box, now on the verge of fainting again. Hiruzen took a small card from his desk and said, "Now Naruto-kun, it will probably be a while before you are advanced enough to learn most of the jutsu, but I will help you along whenever I can." "What is that Gigi?" After explaining elemental manipulation to Naruto, who took the information like ramen, Hiruzen handed him the card and said, This is a card made from chakra paper. If you channel some chakra into it, it will tell you your elemental affinity. After channeling some chakra onto the card, Naruto saw it split in two. Hiruzen began, futon, a rather rare, but stopped when one half of the paper crinkled up and the other half caught fire. His eyes widened at this point. After all, it was unusual for a genin, no, an academy student, to have 3 affinities, let alone a jonin. So what does that mean, Gigi? In response, Hiruzen said, it means you have an affinity for futon, kaden, and raiden. That is good, because most jonin don't even have 3 affinities. This startled him out of his shock. Wow. I am gonna be a super awesome ninja one day. Maybe, but don't let that get to your head, Naruto-kun. My goodness, if this child receives the right training, he will be an animal by the age of 12. He scowled as he concluded, I won't, Gigi. I know it takes hard work to be strong, so that's what I'll do. However, I don't really have anyone to help me. After giving that some thought, Hiruzen got up, made a cross, hand seal, and 20 copies of himself materialized in the room. Before giving it to Naruto, he took out a storage scroll and sealed all of the clones inside. Those clones are called Cage Bun Shins. They are solid clones capable of independent thought. They can be used for a variety of purposes, including training, fighting, and spying. You can take that scroll and unseal a clone whenever you need help training. Thanks, Gigi. You're welcome, Naruto-kun. How about I show you to your new home now? Okay. Hiruzen approached a blank area on the wall, touched his hand to the wall, and performed some hand seals. Before the two vanished, Naruto was shocked to see a seal array on the wall. The next thing Naruto knew, he was standing in the center of what looked to be a mansion's living room. Hiruzen merely grinned when Naruto asked, Where are we at, Gigi? Your home, Naruto-kun. Like the box, this place is full of seals, so that it is hidden from everyone. The only entrance is through my office, or the Hiruzen technique, which is one of the ones your dad left you, but it will likely take you years to learn, as your father is the only person who ever used that jutsu. Hiruzen subsequently demonstrated to Naruto the hand seals from one location to another. So Naruto-kun, do you need anything else? No, Gigi, I think I am just gonna go to bed. I've got a lot to think about. Okay, Naruto-kun, I'll see you tomorrow then. Good night, Gigi. Hiruzen then departed, and Naruto started looking around his new house. He went upstairs after getting acquainted with the house and fell asleep right away. As his fist crashed through his alarm clock, Naruto yelled, damn it, shut up, shish. Go to hell. Naruto didn't want to go to the academy after everything that had happened to him the night before, but it was time to get up for another day. Knowing that he would be in trouble if he missed, he complained a little more as he crawled out of bed. He left home after taking a shower and eating his breakfast, which was instant ramen cups, in preparation for another dull day of learning and, of course, assholes. The glares and curses started as soon as Naruto turned away from the Hokage's office. Fucking demon, shoulda killed you 9 years ago. Monster. Devil. Naturally, the young Naruto was upset by this, but he was accustomed to it and could overlook it as long as they didn't hit him. Even at the academy, where the majority of the teachers detested him, the verbal abuse persisted. When Naruto finally made it to his class, he discovered that he was only the third person present. He looked at his watch and exclaimed, 6:40, what the hell, I'm 20 minutes early. This seemed strange to him because he usually didn't arrive until just before 7 o'clock, when classes started. He decided to try striking up a conversation with the other 2 students, Sasuke Uchiha, who had black hair and black eyes, and Hinata Hyuga, a lavender-haired white girl, since he had some free time. Good morning, guys. The only response Sasuke gave was, morning. Hey, so much better than HMPH. GG good morning, Naruto-kun, was the timid Hyuga's response. How are you guys? Good. I just wish I didn't have to be here so I could do some real training, replied Sasuke. Naruto said, I understand how you feel. I have more important things to learn than the history of shinobi sandals, why they are open-toed. The 2 other students gave a little laugh. The 3 students had no idea that they had just formed a lifelong friendship. Given that his parents were not members of the Lynch Naruto Club, Sasuke was typically unbiased toward Naruto. In fact, Hinata harbored feelings for him. Sasuke began to think, I kind of like that kid, I wonder why everyone else looks at him with such dis. But a crash cut him off. He turned to see a pink-haired girl lying on top of a blonde at the door, where the noise was coming from. Sasuke-kun, exclaimed the girl with the pink hair, whose voice could turn a banshee white. The girl with the pink hair yelled at the blonde, Ha! I was here first, I get to sit by him Ino.pig. You wish Sakura. Fivehead, the blonde exclaimed, sounding a little less amazed. Sakura now pointed her eardrum, splitting noisemaker at Naruto, saying, hey. Move fathead, I'm sitting next to Sasuke.kun. Instead. Calmly, Naruto, I was here first. I don't give a damn. My mom is on the council and she says you're a worthless bastard, so move. Sasuke interrupted Naruto as he started to say, hey you pink-haired, loud-mouthed banshee. I don't care if your mom is the freaking Hokage, you won't talk to him like that anymore. Naruto pondered, did he just stick up for me? Sasuke.kun. Don't call me kun, you sorry waste of breath. Naruto has never done anything to you yet you come in here insulting him. But even though the Uchiha were not regarded as the kindest clan in the area, they still avoided causing trouble and insulting others without cause. Please shut up and leave me alone. Then, with tears in her eyes, Sakura pouted and left Sasuke and Naruto. Bastard, how could I have ever cared for that ass? Because he's freaking hot. That's why, inner Sakura answered. Wow, thanks Sasuke, no one's ever stood up for me like that before. The Uchiha smirked and said, don't bring it up. I kind of like you and she has no reason to talk to you the way she did. Sit down and quit talking, everyone. A fresh voice spoke as the class abruptly turned to face Iruka, who was standing in the front of the room. Okay then, now that I have everyone's attention, today we will be discussing the reason why all ninja shoes are open-toed. The heads of Naruto and Sasuke were now implanted into their table, and a loud thump came from one corner of the room. After a week, Naruto had spent the last week off from school reading his parents' scrolls, and he saw a lot of things he wanted to learn, but as Hiruzen had mentioned, most of them were too hard. However, one in particular caught his attention, so he decided to learn it, and it only took a few hours. It was a device called the Kajbunshin, or shadow clone, and it created solid copies of himself that could fight, train, or do anything else, and once dispelled, he would acquire their memories. This meant that he could now make a clone read a book, and it would be as if he read it himself. Even though Naruto hadn't realized it yet, his friendship with the heirs of the two most revered clans in Konoha had caused some people to refrain from their hateful glares and curses, though the majority still did. Naruto had continued to speak to Sasuke and Hinata while at school, which had further cemented their bond. Naruto appeared to be a good, normal kid, friendly enough with the Hyuga and Uchiha, and most of them remembered that he had always been nice to them. His only flaw was that he used to be a little on the loud side, but that also seemed to have calmed down. The other kids had also begun to see him differently, beginning to doubt the word of their parents. Since his talk with her last week, Sakura has yet to make another attempt to communicate with Sasuke. In fact, the majority of the girls now only admire him from a distance. Ring 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 sigh. With a sigh, Naruto got out of bed and began preparing for another day, hurriedly going through his usual routine before leaving for school, disregarding the remarks made by the majority of the villagers as usual before school. He was the third to arrive, as was customary during the past week. He entered and took his usual seat between Sasuke and Hinata, saying, "Hey guys, morning." "Morning." "Gee. Good morning, Naruto.kun. So guess what I learned, and I think you'll love it, Sasuke." "What is it?" "Well, it's called the Kajbunshin no Jutsu." "Clones. What makes a clone unique?" With his hands in the cross seal, Naruto declared, "Kajbunshin no Jutsu." A clone then materialized, slapped Sasuke in the head, laughed, and then dispelled itself. What the devil was that? Wait, did I just get struck by that clone? Yep. Very sweet. Educate me. Yes. Do you want to learn it too, Hinata? Chan? No thank you, I don't think my family wouldn't approve of it. Okay then. Naruto then taught Sasuke the technique after warning him about the severe chakra drain. Sasuke declared, "Kajbunshin no Jutsu." A clone materialized at his side. Naruto led the clone away, whispered something to it, and then punched it in the face to dispel it, saying, "Now here's the cool part. Hey, screw you." After hearing Naruto insult the clone, Sasuke remarked, "Wait, you said that to him, how do I know it?" "The memories of your clones will be transferred to you when they dispel." "Really? That's very lovely. Sit down and quit talking, everyone," Iruka said as the class abruptly fell silent. "All right. We will be studying the history of kunai today." As Iruka began the lesson, Naruto and Sasuke let out two loud sighs. After having an epiphany, Naruto picked up a piece of paper and wrote, "Ditch? Shadow clone plus replacement?" and giving it to Sasuke by sliding it? A clone of each appeared outside the window, and then the two performed the ram symbol and switched places with the clones. Sasuke took the paper, grinned, and then silently nodded his head and performed the cross seal beneath his desk simultaneously with Naruto. Now what? As they hopped along the rooftops, being careful to remain hidden, Sasuke said. Well, we can't go to my place. Gigi would shit a brick if he knew I was ditching. Same for mine. If Dad and Itachi found out, they'd kill us both. Hell, how about we train for a little while at one of the abandoned training grounds? Before the two altered their route for training ground 14, one of the unused training grounds located in the woods on the outskirts of town, Sasuke said, sure works for me. So, do you have any jutsu you could teach me, since I taught you a sweet one? When they got there, Naruto said. Well, are you familiar with the Kaden Hosenka no jutsu? Sasuke asked. Naruto replied, nah. Well, Sasuke then started to explain the technique to Naruto, who quickly understood it. He then went over the necessary hand seals and exhaled, blowing out multiple fireballs the size of softballs as he said, Kaden Hosenka no jutsu. Wow, considering it was the first attempt, that was pretty good, Sasuke said. It took me about a month to get that good. I have an affinity for Kaden, and Gigi says I have low Jonin level chakra reserves, Naruto said, laughing as he rubbed the back of his head. Yeah, I understand, but no amount of chakra can help you. I'll still be the superior ninja. Sasuke posed a challenge. Not in your dreams at all. Anyway, do you have any other affinities? Said Naruto. Raiden and Kaden. How about you, Raiden and Futon and Kaden? Are you familiar with any Raiden jutsu? No, Dad has only taught me the Hosenka so far. Well, I wonder if my scroll has any. He didn't have any lightning jutsu, but his father had suggested a number of chakra control exercises to improve his control before learning many jutsu anyhow, so Naruto said, taking a scroll out of his pocket and examining it for a moment before frowning. I have no lower level jutsu, but how about training in chakra control? Yes, what were you thinking of? Well, my scroll from Gigi says that tree climbing is a good way to practice. What is the benefit of climbing trees? Naruto walked up a few more steps before using too much chakra and blowing himself off the tree, landing with a thud, as Sasuke laughed his ass off. You have to use your chakra to make your feet stick. Naruto said this as he approached one of the nearby trees and, while focusing, stuck one foot to it. He then stuck the other foot, making it parallel with the ground. When it was Naruto's turn to laugh, he walked over to his own tree and said, watch and learn, loser. He took about 3 steps up before undermining it and falling with his own thud. Sasuke laughed and said, bastard. The two then resumed their game, swiftly turning it into a contest. Both learned how to climb trees after a few hours, with Naruto outpacing Sasuke by less than 5 minutes. In the academy, apart from avoiding being missed, the pair hoped that by leaving the shadow clones in class, they would actually learn the lessons, as they slept through them in person. However, this was not the case. Naruto. Sasuke. Listen up. Iruka shouted at the two dozing students. And since the average hunting knives were less than efficient for combat, some ninjas started trying to design a better weapon, Iruka said, causing both of them to jump up in their chair and become wide awake. This resulted in multiple unsuccessful attempts, including returning to training ground 14. Sasuke sulked, you just got lucky, you know. Naruto grinned broadly and said, nah, this is pure talent. Anyway, what are we going to do next? The next one, according to the scroll, is water walking. It's similar to climbing trees, but you have to change the chakra output because the surface changes all the time. As he began to remove his shirt and head towards the pond at the edge of the field, Sasuke exclaimed, great. You're stripping homo, but why? I'm not like that, Naruto made fun of. You're screwed. Sasuke responded, I'm saving my clothes because I know that no matter how much I go tree climbing, I'll probably get wet at some point. He also removed his pants, leaving only his boxers. As he also undressed, Naruto remarked, good point, I guess. The two preteen boys in their underwear attempting to walk on water would likely require extensive therapy for anyone passing by. After a few more hours, both boys had mastered the exercise once more, with Sasuke winning by a few minutes this time. Loser, I won this time. Sasuke made fun of it. Well, now we're tied, looks like we'll have to have a tiebreaker. So, what should we do? Use chakra to adhere leaves to our bodies. We'll have to go home after the person who leaves in the hour wins. As both boys began frantically grabbing leaves and attempting to get them to stick, Sasuke responded, deal. Neither boy wanted to lose in the end. To Sasuke's dismay, Naruto had adhered 11 leaves to his body parts compared to Sasuke's 10 by the end of the hour. Who's the loser now? Naruto performed a victory dance while taunting. Sulking, Sasuke said, "Damn it." 20 copies of Naruto were scattered throughout the large house where he now lived, while the original was in the backyard, practicing his taijutsu with a clone of Hiruzen, while the clones read over a variety of scrolls that ranged from lower-level futon, raiden, and kaiden jutsu to more complex chakra control techniques. "Alright, try again Naruto-kun," Hiruzen said, observing Naruto toss a number of kunai and shuriken at a large wooden target, his accuracy still lacking. After practicing his accuracy for a few more hours, Naruto went to the target and took out all of his previously thrown weapons, then returned to the line and tried again. Following the weapon practice, Naruto and Hiruzen went over the fundamentals of his father's taijutsu style, and after a few hours, Naruto mastered them, so he decided to call it a night. He defeated the Hiruzen clone before returning inside to wash up and eat. The clones began dispelling themselves as Naruto was getting out of the shower and preparing his instant ramen, returning the knowledge they had acquired to the original. Naruto was now rather pleased, since he would have some new skills to practice with Sasuke when they skipped school once more. Uchiha's covert conference space. I have personally become weary of this village's alienation of our clan. The man at the head of the table in the Uchiha clan's underground meeting room said, "They have been pushing us away since the reign of the Naidame, even though we are the strongest in Konoha." "You're right, Fugaku. Sama." Another man at the table said, "I think it's time for action because we've been ignored for far too long. Yes, I think it's time to demonstrate to this village that the Uchiha are better than everyone else." The man now known as Fugaku said, "Once that idiot Sarutobi is out of the way, I will soon lead this clan back to its proper prestige. Yes, it will be a good day. The Uchiha will rule supremely now that that idiot is gone," according to another man. "I don't think this is the right course of action," the youngest man in the room, Anbu Captain Itachi, stated. "Attempting to organize a coup will only result in more issues than it is worth in the end. Although you are still young and impressionable, you are a great shinobi, son." Fugaku declared, "This is the only way we can regain our prominence." "As you say, father. Now, Itachi, I know that once we leave here, you have a meeting with the Anbu, correct?" "Yes, father. Then you are aware of your objective. Get as much information as you can, and when we meet next week, let us know about any weaknesses." Itachi bowed to the council and then vanished in a whirl of leaves, saying, "Yes, father." Hour later, in the Hokage's office, the weasel turned to face Anbu, who was kneeling in a whirl of leaves in front of Hiruzen's desk, and said, "Hokage, Sama." The room briefly glowed purple before returning to normal after Hiruzen went through some hand seals. "Ah, Itachi, report," said the elderly Hokage as Anbu got up and took off his mask. "It's worse than I anticipated. My father truly plans a coup d'etat, or violent takeover. They seem to have made up their minds, despite my attempts to dissuade them." "I understand. Do you have any details?" "Not just yet. I just got out of a council meeting. In fact, they believe that I am spying on you on their behalf. However, they have only agreed that it will occur and that it will result in your death as of tonight's meeting. They did not specify how or when." As he performed a few hand seals to remove the privacy seal, Hiruzen said, "Understood, Tiger." As soon as he had finished speaking, a tiger, masked Anbu kneeling emerged from the whirl of leaves. "Hokage. Sama, weasel. Taiko." The tiger bowed his head into the air. "Please fetch me Hamaru, Kaharu, and Danzo please, Tiger," said Hiruzen. Tiger said, "As you wish, Hokage. Sama," and then vanished once more. After 20 minutes, the 3 village elders emerged through the door of the Hokage's office. "Ah, please have a seat, we have much to discuss." Before they started talking about potential strategies, the elders entered and gathered around Itachi's desk, where he recounted the story of the coup. "I believe that this threat should be handled quickly and efficiently, by killing all of the Uchiha," Danzo said with conviction. "I think that we should wait it out longer, to see who is involved, and only eliminate them," replied Hiruzen. Hamaru nodded when Kaharu said, "I kind of agree with Danzo, we should act quickly, but only kill the elder Uchiha that harbor ill feelings towards the village. As I previously stated, the Uchiha have generally been doomed by their ambition for power. If we don't completely eradicate the threat, I worry that the survivors will become even more reclusive, which could result in more issues later on." "I see where you are coming from, Danzo, but I don't believe that to be the best solution," Hiruzen replied. "I think it's the only option. This will ensure that they pose no threat going forward." "I guess you might be correct, Itachi." "Yes, Hokage. Sama?" How do you feel about this issue? I support whatever decision you make, but I do think we should only get rid of the guilty. The kids can still be shaped and reformed to avoid continuing down the hateful path the family has already followed. I just so happen to agree. That's the route we'll follow. It will be executed in a week, following the subsequent Uchiha meeting. Following the meeting, the noise, which lasted for several minutes before fading into the sound of a door opening and then closing, was heard down the long, dark corridor beneath Konoha. Tap. Torun. Danzo Shimura, the noise's originator, said this to no one in particular, and a few seconds later, the room began to rustle with wind. Danzo. Sama, yes. Now kneeling in front of Danzo's desk, the man said. As the man got up and bowed, Danzo said, at ease, Torun. All right, within the next week, you must have your 2 best squads ready for a mission. The Uchiha shinobi is being eliminated by one of Sarutobi's Anbu. As always, we will have to handle this issue in the shadows. I attempted to persuade the frail old man to kill them all, but he refused. Before vanishing as quickly as he had appeared, Torun said, it will be seen to Danzo, Sama. Am I really required to? As Sasuke dragged Naruto through the streets, accompanied by a flushed Hinata, Naruto pouted. Yes. You must dress like a shinobi if you want to hang out with me and be taken seriously. My clothes are in perfect condition. You're wearing a kill me orange jumpsuit, Naruto. That's essentially pleading with someone to track you down and kill you. Help me out here, Hinata. Chan. Following a slight flush, Hinata stammered out, actually n Naruto.kun. Sasuke.kun is right. Oh no, not you either. Alright. With a sigh, Naruto admitted to altering his appearance. The 3 of them walked for a few more minutes until they reached one of Konoha's more prominent shinobi clothing stores. The cashier gave Naruto a stern look as they attempted to enter, then said, I'm so sorry, Uchiha. Sama. Hyuga. Sama. Is this filth bothering you? That remark infuriated the Uchiha once more, and he glared at the man with his onyx eyes. What was that? I inquired as to whether you wanted me to get rid of the bothersome trash. My best friend just so happens to be this trash. If you don't watch what you say, you'll offend 2 of Konoha's most powerful clans. After repeatedly opening and closing his mouth, the man apologized to the 3 and ushered them inside. While they were examining the different items, Naruto said, well, what am I supposed to buy? I'm not big on clothes shopping. For their part, Naruto and Sasuke sat back and let the woman do her magic, and after a few minutes, she returned with a few outfits in her arms. Thought Hinata as she began to look around for a minute. I think that these would look good on you, n Naruto.kun. Then, with a smile that made her blush 3 shades more, he carried the clothes into the changing room, tried them on, and then walked back outside for her to check out. They were a blue polo shirt with orange sleeves and an orange collar that ran down the side of the shirt before curving in to a point and stopping at the ribcage, as well as a pair of khaki cargo shorts that resembled Sasuke's. Since I still get to keep some orange, I kind of like this one, said Naruto, exited about keeping his favorite color. Sasuke was just along for the ride. Hinata, however, fainted upon seeing it, only getting out a single thought, sexy. Hinata. Chan. Are you all right? Sasuke saw the big smile on her face as she fell and said, ha, she obviously likes it. Well then it works for me too, let's wake her up and get out of here. Before gathering the clothes and heading to the register to buy them, they waited for Hinata to finally recover for a few minutes. After purchasing the clothing without any issues, they went to an embroidery shop to have the Uzumaki clan symbol placed on the back of the shirts and a leaf insignia placed on the left chest, after which the 3 of them sat outside to eat while they waited. They decided to go to a nearby barbecue restaurant, where they ate and talked for a few hours before returning to pick up Naruto's new clothes. The 3 of them then parted ways to rest for the following day, but none of them anticipated that tomorrow would be the day that forever altered the lives of Sasuke and Naruto. Once more, Naruto arrived at the academy as the 3rd person. Hinata flushed as he walked in, but this time she was able to remain conscious. As he made his way to his usual seat, Naruto said, hey guys, good morning. Sasuke replied, morning. GG good morning and Naruto.kun, YUL. L. Look, was the furthest Hinata could go before losing the fight against unconsciousness. A naive Naruto remarked, man, she should see a doctor, this is happening a lot lately. Sasuke smirked and said, you're such an idiot, Naruto. Why am I an idiot? Nothing, tell me. Sasuke laughed and said, you'll see one day. I want to know now though. Okay, I'll tell you then. Yay. Why then? Sasuke laughed again and said, you just are. Ass. I know you are, but what am I? Stupid. I know you are, but what am I? Stop it, asshole. As Naruto's face flushed with annoyance, Sasuke burst out laughing. I know you are, but what am I? He asked. I'm about to. The now conscious Hinata said, N. Naruto.kun. S. Sasuke.kun. Be nice to each other, page, please. Huffing, Naruto sat back and used his mind to will Sasuke's head to explode. Fine, he exclaimed. A few more students were beginning to show up by this point. They included a number of girls who, prior to today, had stopped detesting Naruto but had not yet grown to like him. Another fan club was formed almost immediately after all the girls showed up and saw Naruto's new attire. Sasuke's smile threatened to split his face in two as he watched some of the girls court Naruto. According to Naruto, what's so funny? You drew some of their attention away from me. What do you? At that moment, Naruto heard Naruto.kun yell. I don't understand how he didn't hear them earlier, and oh my god, he's adorable. And the cries of pushing, swearing, and no, I'm going to date Naruto.kun first, and nah I am. While Hinata giggled a little and Sasuke began to laugh, he simply slammed his head against the table. Their laughter was met with his muffled response, it's not funny. Iruka entered the room and yelled, all right everyone, sit down and shut up. He grinned and started the day after everyone had stopped talking. Iruka glanced around the classroom and said, okay, class, today we will be going over taijutsu. Let's move outside so you can show me what you know so far. Sasuke whispered to Naruto, damn, we can't skip today or the clones will end up getting dispelled. Naruto growled softly, causing Hinata to laugh. After that, the class headed outside to the academy training field, where they were all paired off. They both enjoyed Naruto and Sasuke as a couple. Sakura was paired with Hinata, who liked her. I wish I already knew the Jiyuken, where I could beat her for being so annoying, said Hinata. Sakura and inner Sakura thought, maybe if I can beat her, Sasuke.kun will like me. Yeah, if you pummel her he'll have to love us. Under the close supervision of the teachers, who were attempting to correct the students' stances and identify any errors in their styles, all of the children started their spars. Fangirls went crazy when it was finally Naruto and Sasuke's turn. Naruto/Sasuke.kun was the sound that echoed throughout the village. With a sly smile, Sasuke asked, ready to lose, loser? In your dreams? Naruto smirked in response. Iruka shouted, begin, and then leapt aside. Sasuke punched Naruto in the face as the two boys rushed at one another. Sasuke flipped back out of the way to avoid Naruto's own uppercut, which he delivered after dodging the punch. After a brief moment of staring at one another from opposite sides of the ring, the boys charged back in. Naruto took action this time and gave Sasuke a feint punch. Before Naruto kicked him in the ribs and slid him back a few feet, he bit and attempted to block the blow. Screaming, OWW bastard, you'll pay for that, Sasuke jumped back into the fray. Naruto jumped up to avoid Sasuke's attempt to sweep his legs out from under him as he swiftly returned to him. Knowing that Naruto would do that, Sasuke grinned. Grabbing Naruto's legs with his outstretched arms, he spun him around and slammed him hard into the ground. When Sasuke heard a poof, indicating that it was a shadow clone, he grinned, believing he had won. He began to look around for Naruto, but before he could get very far, Naruto's fist struck his cheek and knocked him to his back. He opened his eyes to find Naruto standing 2 inches from his face, his fist raised above him. Good job boys, both of you are well advanced in taijutsu for your age. I saw some openings and flaws, but that is to be expected. I assume you both train at home, seeing that that wasn't the academy style? Iruka replied. Yay, I'm trying to develop my own style, between my mother and father's, but it's slow going, Naruto said after helping Sasuke up. Sasuke added, I use my family style, the intercepting fist. Iruka smiled and said, well, I'm glad to see you two training early, you'll go far in the world like that. Okay, next up, Hinata and Sakura. Before Iruka instructed them to start, the two girls in question approached the ring and bowed to one another. Hinata merely stood and waited as Sakura charged in at her. Hinata slapped Sakura's face with her palm as she approached. Sakura stumbled back a few paces and collapsed to the ground, unconscious. With a drop of perspiration, Iruka said, well, good job Hinata. Thank you, Iruka. Sensei. Alright, everyone, you did a great job today. You are fired. Iruka yelled over the students. As Hinata, Sasuke, and Naruto reunited, they all started to part ways. Wanna go grab something eat and then train for a while? Thanks for asking, Naruto.kun, but father wants me to train with him today, sorry. Naruto smiled reassuringly and said, it's fine Hinata-chan, maybe some other time. You and Sasuke? As they left for Ichiraku Ramen, Sasuke said, sure, let's go. Following their meal, the two proceeded to Naruto's house to use his training field, where they remained until nearly nightfall. After they finished training, Sasuke said, you want to come over for dinner? I'm sure mom won't mind. Naruto ran inside and showered, saying, sure, let me clean up real quick though. After 20 minutes, when Naruto and Sasuke heard what sounded like a fight going on inside the Uchiha compound, they decided to go investigate. Both boys were nearly ill when they got inside. The streets were littered with bodies, and the only people they could see alive were Itachi and Anbu, who were engaged in combat. Itachi. Yelled Sasuke as he and Naruto began to run in the direction of the group. Itachi was fighting at an 8-to-1 disadvantage and didn't have time to look up. He quickly located a gap and stabbed one of the men in the throat. While he was distracted, Sasuke ran in and attempted to stab one of the Root in the back, but the Root broke free and kicked Sasuke into a wall across the street, knocking him unconscious. Although Naruto was concerned about Sasuke, he knew he needed to concentrate at the moment. He yelled, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, as 50 clones materialized and surrounded the two Roots that had separated from the battle. The only wounds the Roots sustained were minor cuts here and there, and it only took a few minutes to spread the clones. After that, they focused on the actual Naruto. He attempted to defend himself, but it was ineffective against Danzo's finest soldiers, who soon started beating him before one of them kicked him away and slashed his left eye with a kunai, leaving him for dead. You are pathetic, kid. Every time you get in a fight I have to come bail you out. I would be the laughing stock of the other Biju if they knew my container was so weak. You're just lucky I would die with you or I'd let the men kill you. Take my power and do away with those me that threaten you. Growled Kurama at Naruto, who was now in his mental realm. As he vanished, Naruto said, thanks, returning to reality. Before they all momentarily stopped when they sensed a chakra source and killing intent that would have brought a normal man to his knees, Itachi wasn't holding up well against the 7 Root members. As his eyes narrowed, his whiskers darkened, and his canines grew longer, Naruto's prone form on the ground began to leak red chakra in waves. The now Kyuubified Naruto threw out his arms and sent 2 chakra arms to the group of Root, crushing 2 of them in a shower of blood. This is the end for you bastards. You dare come here and kill the family of my friends, for that, you will die. Itachi took advantage of this and decapitated another of them, bringing the score to 4-2. 2 of the Roots stayed with Itachi, while the other 2 turned away and pursued Naruto. These 2 were more difficult to kill because they were genuinely anticipating a fight, and they still managed to hit Naruto a few more times. After battling them to a standstill for some time, he exhaled a stream of fire that ensnared one of them and destroyed the majority of his body. Because of the distraction, the second dodged and managed to get inside Naruto's guard before slashing Naruto's other eye with his tanto. Naruto roared in agony after being struck, then let out a whirlpool of flames that consumed the Root before he passed out. Now that the odds were only 2-1, Itachi quickly dispatched the other 2 with his ninja.to, decapitating them both. He created a shadow clone that shunned straight to the Hokage's office to inform him of the fight's outcome. A minute later, Hiruzen and a group of Anbu members emerged in the compound next to Itachi. Itachi, report. Hiruzen said, surveying the chaos. All was going according to plan until these Root Anbu attacked. While I was fighting them, Sasuke.kun and Naruto.kun showed up. Sasuke was knocked out immediately, but Naruto managed to kill 4 of them with the Kyuubi's help. If he hadn't shown up I probably would have died, but unfortunately he lost both of his eyes in the fight. Hiruzen was obviously upset that his surrogate grandson would never be able to fulfill his dream of becoming the Hokage because he was blind. I see, Anbu, clean up this mess and find any survivors. Itachi saw that Hiruzen was upset and said, if you will allow it, Hokage. Sama, I have a way to fix his eyes. Hiruzen said, do whatever you can to fix it, and his tension immediately subsided. After entering his home for a short while and returning with a jar that contained 2 floating eyes, Itachi said, hi. He opened the jar and extracted one of these eyes while kneeling next to Naruto and performing a brief series of hand seals with one hand. Subsequently, his free hand began to glow green. He reached down with it, formed a C shape with his thumb and index finger, and opened Naruto's right eyelid to reveal the disfigured eye. Then he removed the eye and put the one in his other hand in its place. He put Naruto in a genjutsu to keep him asleep until he could get to the hospital after doing the same with his other eye. There, he should be fine after some rest in the hospital. Thank you Itachi.kun. If you don't mind me asking, Who did they belong to? Replied Hiruzen. They were my Fugakus, but on another note, what do we do about the root? Simple, they went rogue and invaded the compound, and you killed them to protect the clan. You will claim innocence so that you don't have to go rogue. I see. Thank you Hokage. Sama, thanks for what? Despite everything that had transpired tonight, Itachi simply laughed at that. After 2 days. Where am I? Naruto asked himself as he began to gradually come to. And why can't I see anything? He briefly attempted to open his eyes but was unsuccessful. He began to yell, the fight, I lost both my eyes, I'm blind. Hiruzen, who was sitting next to Naruto's bed but had fallen asleep, was awakened by this. Naruto-kun. He shouted, calm down for a moment and let me explain. That voice, is that? Naruto calmed down at the sound of his grandfather figure's voice and said, Gigi? Yes Naruto-kun, it's me. What happened? Some rude Anbu went rogue and invaded the Uchiha compound trying to eliminate them for reasons unknown, but you and Itachi-kun managed to stop them. Unfortunately, as I guess you know, you lost both of your eyes in the fight. However, Itachi-kun managed to fix them. Then why can't I see? Your eyes are still bandaged, Naruto-kun. In order to fix your eyesight, Itachi took the Sharingan eyes from his father, who was killed in the fight. As he turned green, Naruto asked, so I have a dead guy eyes? Yes, but it isn't that bad. You're like Kakashi now. You are only the second non-Uchiha to have a Sharingan. I see, so when can I take the bandages off? It should be okay to remove them now. You've been out for over 2 days. Naruto replied as he started to remove the bandages from his head, okay then. He soon finished and had a completely different perspective on the world. For his part, Hiruzen was taken aback. He noticed a Mangekyo Sharingan in Naruto's new eyes. The design resembled a symbol for biohazards. Naruto-kun, can you deactivate your eyes? Uncertain of the reason, Naruto managed to deactivate the eyes, revealing simple onyx eyes. Hiruzen stared at the black eyes and thought, it sure is weird, seeing Naruto without those deep blue eyes of his. Now turn them back on. In doing so, Naruto displayed the standard 3-Tomo Sharingan. Also, you have a special version, called the Mangekyo, can you activate that one? Before transforming into his Mangekyo form, the 3-Tomo in Naruto's eyes started to spin quickly. Good, you can turn them back off now. Naruto kept the 3-Tomos in motion while shutting off his Mangekyo. Why did you leave the Sharingan on, Naruto-kun? I need to get used to seeing from them. By the way Gigi, how is Sasuke? He is fine, he got a concussion but should be awake by the morning. Okay then, thanks Gigi. Naruto stood up and embraced the elderly man. Okay Naruto-kun, you're free to go now. I'll see you later, Hiruzen said with a slight smile. As Hiruzen left through the door, Naruto said, okay, bye Gigi. As she and Naruto left the hospital, Hinata said, Naruto-kun, I'm glad that you're okay. Naruto's voice was sad as he answered, yeah, I just feel bad for Sasuke. A lot of his family died and for no reason. Having grown up alone, he understood what it was like to be lonely, even though he had no idea what it was like to lose someone close. Yes, but at least Sasuke-kun still has his mom and Itachi. Naruto said resolutely, yay, and he has us too. Of course. Hinata smiled in response. By this point, the two had left the hospital and were walking down the street, going to Ichiraku's for some food. They both couldn't help but notice that Naruto was getting worse glares than usual. Damn demon, he's obviously responsible for the massacre. And I heard he stole the Sharingan from them after he killed them all. Were some of the phrases they heard as they went on. When Naruto genuinely assisted in stopping the renegade Anbu, Hinata was offended that people were holding him responsible for what transpired. Naruto-kun, I wish people weren't like that. As for Naruto, he was already accustomed to the hate and glares and hoped that they would remain just that, rumors and glares. After killing that group of villagers that night, he didn't want to be attacked again. To Hinata's delight, they eventually made it to Ichiraku's. Naruto could not be mistreated by anyone in this place. Being among the first to embrace Naruto and show him kindness, Seiuchi and Ayame forbade anyone from bullying him in front of them. Naruto said, hey old man, miso ramen with pork for me, and keep em coming, as they entered and sat down. Seiuchi replied, of course, Naruto-kun, and what would you like Hinata-chan? Hinata said courteously, please, I'll have a vegetable ramen. Seiuchi went into the back to get their food ready and said, I'll have them out in just a minute then. Ayame rushed out and ran around the counter to embrace Naruto as soon as Seiuchi appeared at the door. I was so worried about you, Oto. I heard you were injured in a fight at the Uchiha compound. Are you okay? Ayame smiled as Naruto confidently said, I'm fine, Nichan. You should know that nothing can keep me down until I become the Hokage. I know, but I can't help but worry about my Otuto. Naruto walked back behind the counter and took their food from her father, saying, thanks. Naruto screamed, Itadakimasu, and started eating with the rage that comes from going 2 days without eating. Both Hinata and Ayame were sweating over his manners, but they also decided to let it go because they knew he hadn't eaten in a few days, only this once. It took a long time, given that Naruto consumed almost 30 bowls, for Hinata and Naruto to finish their meals while conversing with Seiuchi and Ayame. When they finished eating, Hinata took some cash out of her pocket to cover the cost of her meal, and they both got up to go. Naruto halted her when he noticed this and took out enough cash to cover their meals. As they walked away and started to head home, Hinata blushed slightly and said, thanks, and Naruto-kun. Naruto grinned and rubbed the back of his neck, saying, it's no problem, Hinata. Chan, I asked you to come, so it's only right that I pay, right? Why? You really didn't have to thought, it was no problem at all. After that, the two kept walking and chatting until they got close to the Hyuga compound. As he gave her a brief embrace, Naruto said, see you tomorrow, Hinata. Chan. Her face flushed. Before entering, she stammered, SS sure and Naruto-kun. Thank you for walking me home. One of the branch family members greeted her as soon as she arrived and said, Hinata. Sama, Hiyashi. Sama requests your presence. Hinata bowed slightly and said, hi, thank you. Worried about what her father might want, Hinata then went to his study and knocked on the door. Her confidence problems had somewhat improved, but she was still uneasy around her father. Since her mother passed away a few years ago, he had been extremely aloof and cold toward her. Her father, Hiyashi, said in a flat voice, enter. She bowed to him after opening the door and entering. She hardly managed not to stutter as she said, hello Tucson, you wanted to see me? Yes, I have a few questions for you. Hinata simply acknowledged him with a nod, signaling that he could proceed. I am told that you are associating with Uchiha and the Uzumaki child, yes? Why? Yes, Tucson. I see. I am not pleased by this. You know our clan has bad blood with the Uchiha, and the Uzumaki is nothing but trouble. But Tucson they. No, but, Hinata. They're trash, and you shall not see them again. Naruto-kun. Sasuke-kun. You are my only friends, how can I not see you anymore? Said Hinata. But, my word is final. You will not associate with them anymore, is that clear? The idea of losing her friends now made Hinata sad, almost to the point of tears. Something inside of her decided to break at that moment. Hinata said, no, with a renewed sense of conviction. What was that? Hiyashi asked, his voice full of rage. I said no, I will not stop talking to my friends. You dare defy my word? You need to learn your place, girl. Hinata screamed, you will not control my life. Naruto-kun and Sasuke-kun are my friends and it will remain that way. But Hiyashi, who was furious, slapped her in the face. Hiyashi glared at Hinata, saying, get out of my sight. I will decide a fitting punishment for your insolence by morning. Without saying another word, Hinata stood up and walked out of the room. Insolent little bitch, she is too soft to be the heir anyways, she would bring disgrace to our name. Perhaps Neji would be a suitable replacement. Even though he was born into the branch house, he is quite the prodigy. That's it. I shall banish Hinata and give her the seal, and then remove Neji's and name him clan heir. Hiyashi pondered. Alongside Hinata, as Hinata made her way to her room, she thought, I can't believe he would try to take them away from me. I would never give up Naruto-kun and Sasuke-kun. I just can't believe I actually stood up to him either. After Naruto left Hinata, he was with despite the villagers' persistent glares, Naruto started to walk back towards the Hokage's office in order to enter his home. Eventually, he became aware of a follower. As he changed his course to head for the closest training ground, he thought, come on, not this again. I'm still too far away from the tower to receive help. Damn, more of them keep joining in. Finally, he turned to face the stalkers and said, come on out, I know you're there. He was shocked to see that 3 of the 5 individuals in the group were wearing Chunin vests. Just freaking great. One of the Chunin said, are you ready to die, demon? I've never bothered you before, can't you just leave me alone? Naruto yelled. The next Chunin lunged at Naruto and said, never bothered us? You killed my father 8 years ago, and now you killed half of the Uchiha clan. We're gonna make you pay. In an attempt to avoid the attack, Naruto immediately leapt out of the way, but the first Chunin caught him in the face and knocked him against a tree. Naruto was kicked in the ribs and knocked away again before he could even reach the ground. Midway through the flight, he recovered his composure and landed feet first on a tree, staying there. He recalled having his Sharingan at that moment, and he used it to try to gain an advantage. It was like the difference between day and night once he opened his eyes. He could now easily predict their next move and see movements that he had previously found difficult to follow. A genin in his mid-teens seemed to be the next to attack. He leapt towards Naruto brandishing a kunai with the intention of cutting his throat. Before making the move, Naruto saw it coming, so he drew his own kunai, ducked under the slash, jumped back up, and buried the hilt deep in the man's chest before kicking the body away just in time to stop the other genin, a girl who looked to be between 14 and 15 years old, from slashing with a sword. After moving slightly to the left to avoid the sword blow, he swung another kunai and sliced through the arm that was wielding the weapon. She screamed, dropped the sword, and spun around to kick Naruto in the head. He anticipated it, ducked beneath it with ease, and then kicked her in the chest, sending her flying. Then he caught the sword she dropped and stopped the third Chunin's kunai slash. After that, the Chunin leapt away and started performing hand seals. Naruto swiftly started to imitate him after driving his new blade into the ground. As they blasted a stream of flames at one another, they simultaneously yelled, Kaden, Enden, Fire Release, Flame Bullet. A cloud of steam formed as the flames collided and spread apart. The Chunin couldn't see through the steam, but Naruto could with his Sharingan. Taking the sword from the ground, Naruto created a shadow clone, which then leapt through the smoke and confronted the Chunin. Shortly afterward, the Chunin hit the clone and dispelled it. As his head left his shoulders and rolled across the floor, his final thought was, Shadow clone? After that, Naruto paused to search for the other two assailants. He heard a new voice say, Kaden. Gokakyu no Jutsu. Fire Release. Grand Fireball. Just as he saw one of the Chunin running towards him with a kunai. Then a huge stream of fire swept across the ground in front of him, turning the attacking Chunin to ash before turning and burning the girl he had previously knocked out. The enigmatic voice, which belonged to an Anbu wearing a weasel mask, said, Sorry it took me so long to get here Naruto-kun. You can take it easy now, good job so far. After throwing out a number of shuriken, Weasel proceeded through hand seals so quickly that Naruto was unable to even use his Sharingan to keep up. He blew out multiple balls of fire that surrounded the shuriken before they all flew at the final fighter, slicing and burning him beyond recognition. Kaden. Hosenka no Jutsu. Awed by the man's performance, Naruto asked, Who are you? Itachi said, taking off his mask, as of right now, my name is Weasel. You may call me Itachi though, Naruto-kun. Naruto questioned, You're Sasuke's brother, right? That is correct Naruto-kun. I'm sorry about your clan Itachi-kun. You don't know the half of it. Wait, did he call me Itachi-kun? Thank you for your condolences. And kun? Well, you called me Naruto-kun. Do you mind if I call you Itachi-kun? No, feel free. With a smile, Naruto said, thank you. Well Naruto-kun, we should report in to the Hokage. When Itachi placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder and shunned them to Hiruzen's office, Naruto replied, right. Hiruzen put tobacco in his pipe and lit it, saying, Itachi-kun, Naruto-kun, what brings you two here? Itachi stated simply, Naruto-kun was attacked by a few shinobi. Hiruzen said, I see. What happened, as his eyes brightened slightly in concern. Well, I was walking home after I dropped Hinata-chan off at the Hyuga compound, when I noticed I was being followed. I then led them to the nearest training field in case they caused any trouble. After we got there they called me a demon and blamed me for killing the Uchiha, before attacking me. I managed to take out two of them and incapacitate a third before Itachi-kun arrived and swiftly dealt with the remaining two. I see, fools. You did good to defend yourself until Itachi could arrive Naruto-kun. And thank you Itachi-kun for arriving swiftly to help. It is no problem Hokage. Sama. It is the least I could do, without Naruto-kun I would have likely died by the root. Naruto inquired, speaking of which, what is root? They are a special group of Anbu that are led by Danzo. They typically work in the shadows and stay out of the public eye. Hiruzen clarified. Why would they attack the Uchiha? Hiruzen skillfully lied when he said, we aren't sure, but we think they may have just cracked under the stress. Oh I see. Anyways Naruto-kun, are you okay? Yay Gigi, I'm fine. They barely touched me because of the Sharingan. I didn't figure he would be able to use it so quickly. Good job Naruto.kun. As Naruto approached the wall and performed some hand seals before the wall opened up and he entered and vanished, Hiruzen said, I see. Well, if you are okay, then you can go on home. So Itachi.kun, what did you think of Naruto-kun's performance? He is good for his age, that is for sure, but he needs to be better. I was actually thinking about training him and my Otuto for a while and having them join Anbu, if that is okay with you. Actually, I was going to suggest something along those lines myself. Being in Anbu would prevent this from happening, as well as make them both strong shinobi. Yay, I shall begin as soon as Sasuke.kun is cleared then. Okay then, I'll assign this to you as a long-term mission, that way you won't be interrupted unless absolutely necessary. Thank you Hokage. Sama. Thank you as well, you may be dismissed. The following day Naruto got up as usual, went about his morning as usual, and then left the house to visit Sasuke before heading to school. When Naruto arrived at the Hokage's office, he said, Morning Gigi. Hiruzen, worried that Naruto had been compelled to murder more people the previous evening, said, Good morning, Naruto.kun. How do you feel? I'm okay Gigi. I'm just headed to see Sasuke and then to school. Hiruzen started, actually, after glancing at the young blonde. How would you like to be trained by Itachi alongside Sasuke instead of attending the academy? Really, I would like that, but I would miss seeing Hinata-chan. You don't have to worry about that Naruto.kun. You would still have free time to spend with your friends. Really, if I still get to see her then of course I'll accept. Itachi is really strong so he makes sure I'm good enough to take your spot in no time. Naruto replied with a grin. He is a very talented shinobi, and the best candidate to teach you now that you have the Sharingan. You can go on and visit Sasuke now, and come back here to meet Itachi when you're done. Naruto grinned and said, Okay. Thanks Gigi, as he walked out of the room. The Hyuga compound Hinata had already prepared herself and was ready to start her day when she heard someone knock on her door. Hinata. Sama, Hiyashi. Sama requests your presence once more. As she left her room to check what he wanted, she thought, what could he want now? I hoped he would let it drop after last night. She arrived at her father's study in a matter of minutes and knocked on the door. Enter. She walked in to stand in front of his desk after opening the door. Her voice was emotionless as she asked, You wanted to see me? Yes I did. Pertaining to your insolence last night, I have come to a decision. I do not see you fit to be the next leader of this clan. As such, you are hereby banished from the clan and stripped of the Hyuga name. Hinata felt as though a hammer had struck her in the chest with those words. Although she was angry at her father's behavior toward her friends, she didn't think he would act in this manner. She was exiled from her home and family at the age of 8. How will I survive? I'm not old enough to live alone, she was thinking. And furthermore, once you return from the academy today, you will be given the seal before taking your things and leaving. The news of getting the seal now nearly sent her into a state of shock. She just nodded her head, almost crying, and turned to make her way out. Reflecting on her father's words and fighting back the tears that threatened to spill, she started to walk through the village to visit Sasuke at the hospital. At the hospital a few minutes later, Sasuke was still sleeping when Naruto arrived at the hospital. He only sat there for a few minutes before getting up to go because he didn't want to wake him. But as he reached the door, he nearly ran into Hinata, who was not looking at her destination and had a faraway expression on her face. He retreated to allow Hinata-chan to enter the room and said, Oh hey Hinata-chan, sorry about that. However, she simply entered and took a seat in a chair close to Sasuke's bed without responding to him. Naruto repeated, Hinata-chan, but received no response. He then approached her and gave her a closer look, observing that she was staring blankly at the wall, clearly threatening to cry at any moment. Just inches from her face, he whispered, Hinata-chan, are you okay? The dams behind her eyes burst, and she jolted back to reality, glomping onto him. Before she finally calmed down and began talking, she sobbed into his shoulder for a few minutes. Before she could cry again, she choked out, Naruto.kun sniff, I'm sorry, but my father Sniff disowned me and banished me from the clan this morning. Sniff then he told me Sniff that I was going to get the seal. Naruto and Hinata were both taken aback when a new voice asked, What's going on? As Naruto clung to Hinata, he exclaimed, Oh Sasuke, you're finally awake, good. She said that her dad disowned her this morning. Sasuke snarled as his one-tomo Sharingan unconsciously came into play, saying, I see, bastard. Hinata managed to say, It's okay, Sasuke.kun, don't be angry for me. Then Sasuke relaxed, but when he attempted to sit up in bed, his Sharingan continued to be active. With a chuckle, Naruto asked Sasuke, "You feel better now, princess?" earning him a glare enhanced by Sharingan. With sincere admiration, Naruto remarked, "Well, it looks like you finally woke up your Sharingan." When Sasuke noticed his reflection in a window, he asked, "Really? Cool, but speaking of eyes and the such, weren't your eyes blue?" Then Naruto's expression changed to one of sadness. "Yay, I got his in both of my eyes during the fight though, so Itachi gave me a set of Sharingan eyes from one of the ones who didn't make it." Sasuke said, "Oh, I see. Can you use the Sharingan?" In response, Naruto turned on his 3 tomo and slowly spun them around. Sasuke grinned and said, "Cool, but it won't help you any, I'm still gonna beat you." Naruto grinned and said, "I doubt it, loser. But get dressed, we need to go see Gigi." As Naruto led Hinata out of the room, Sasuke said, "Okay, give me a minute." After leaving the hospital a short while later, the three headed to the Hokage Tower and into Hiruzen's office. As they entered, Naruto said, "Hey Gigi." Hiruzen replied, "Hello everyone. I'm glad to see you up again now, Sasuke." "Thank you, Hokage. Sama." Hiruzen's question, "And what is wrong with Hinata?" made Naruto's expression serious. "She said that her father banished her from the clan and told her she was getting sealed later today, though that's all I know," replied Naruto. "Hinata, would you mind telling me what happened please?" After that, Hinata went on to describe the events of the night before and the morning after. The fact that Hiashi would throw her out and make personal jabs at Naruto and Sasuke infuriated everyone in the room. Even though Hiruzen was furious that someone would harm their own daughter in that way, he understood that there was nothing he could do because it was a clan issue. He hung his head in defeat and said, "Well, I am not happy about it, but it's not my place to interfere in clan affairs. I'm sorry." Despite what everyone believed, Naruto was actually very intelligent, he just decided not to apply that knowledge in the classroom. Nevertheless, Naruto noticed something that the others did not. Hiruzen and Sasuke gave him a perplexed look as Hinata started to recount the story. "Hinata-chan, can you repeat that again please?" he asked. "I see," Naruto remarked, reflecting on Hinata's recent statement. With his confusion intact, Hiruzen questioned, "What are you getting at Naruto-kun?" "Hinata-chan, this is very important. Did you tell the story in the exact order that it happened?" replied Naruto. In response, Hinata said, "Yes it is. So just to be sure, he banished you from the clan and then said you will get the seal?" "Yes," Hinata replied, unable to understand his direction. However, Hiruzen eventually noticed. When he understood what Naruto was saying, his face brightened with surprise. When Naruto realized Hiruzen finally understood, he simply grinned. "If you are now banished and therefore no longer a Hyuga, then it is no longer a clan issue, but an issue with one of our Hokage's future shinobi." Now Sasuke and Hinata understood what he was saying. When Hinata realized she was safe, her face brightened, and Sasuke laughed a little. Despite his occasional dumbass behavior, Naruto was a true genius when it came to important matters. Hiruzen grinned, in part because Hinata was now safe and in part because Naruto had displayed his lighter side with his remark. "Naruto-kun, you are right. If she is already disowned, then Hiashi-san has no right to touch her. Doing so would amount to assaulting a citizen, which is illegal." "Thank you so much Naruto-kun," exclaimed Hinata as she gave him another kiss. Naruto grinned and gave her a hug in return, saying, "You're welcome, Hinata-chan. Sorry to interrupt, but there is still the issue of what will happen to Hinata. Though she is free from the seal, she is still banished from the clan and has nowhere to go," Hiruzen said in a serious manner. Naruto said, his face more solemn, "Oh yay." And when Hinata considered that, she pouted again. Naruto spoke again after a brief period of silence in the room. "Hey Gigi, I've got plenty of extra rooms in my house, she could stay with me?" Hinata felt a little dizzy and thought, Naruto-kun wants me to live with him. Hiruzen asked, smirking slightly at her expense, "Hinata, what do you think of this?" Hinata simply nodded, yes, not having faith that her voice would be heard clearly. According to Hiruzen, "Okay then, that sounds like a plan. Hinata, you can go on to the academy now. Report here once you leave please." Before leaving, she bowed deeply and said, "Thank you, Hokage-sama." At that moment, Itachi decided to join the three of them in the room. "Hokage-sama, Sasuke-kun, Naruto-kun." He indicated the Hokage with a slight bow. Hiruzen answered, "Hello Itachi, how are you?" Turning to face Naruto and Sasuke, Itachi said, "Fine, thank you. Now then, Sasuke-kun, Do you want to receive training from me instead of attending the academy? Of course, Aniki! Exclaimed Sasuke. He loved training under his big brother and had the utmost respect for him. Okay then, are you ready to begin? Yay, Naruto-kun? Me too. Okay then, meet me at the Uchiha training field in 1 hour please. The boys yelled, okay, as they hurried home to prepare. After the boys had left, Itachi asked, so, Hokage Sama, how do you believe Hiashi-san will take the news? I doubt he will be very happy about it. I intend to personally escort Hinata-san to retrieve her personal belongings this afternoon. I see. Shall myself and my new team come as well? If you wish. Though I know it isn't right, I would like for you all to be there, so that it makes it worse when Hiashi learns that Naruto picked apart his plan. Hiruzen laughed. Itachi, who is usually stoic, surprised everyone by laughing twice in a week. Okay then, if I may, I'll take my leave now to prepare for the boys' lesson. As Itachi vanished into a swarm of ravens, Hiruzen uttered the words, dismissed. After 45 minutes, the Uchiha training grounds. Itachi addressed the two boys in front of him, saying, okay, I want you two to know that this training will not be easy. I intend to have you both enrolled in Anbu by the time you turn 10. Do you understand? Both of them simultaneously said, yes Itachi, sensei. Good. Now for today's first lesson, I will be teaching you both the Shunshin. Normally the technique is reserved for Chunin level shinobi, but it is infinitely helpful, so you will learn it today. Both of you activate your Sharingan. Itachi said as the two boys did so. In order to execute a Shunshin to the opposite side of the field and back, Itachi then gradually collected the chakra. They both nodded, and he said, did you see how I did that? Now you try. Then, to help with the chakra gathering, Naruto and Sasuke made the ram sign before both of them vanished from their positions. There was a hollow thunk 20 feet from where they had been, and both boys were seen with their heads held on the ground. You must concentrate on the destination to control the travel. Without good focus, this will happen again. Try again. Once more, the two boys got to their feet and made the ram sign before vanishing and resurfacing some 20 feet away. Itachi threw two kunai, 50 feet from the boys and about 6 feet apart, saying, okay, good. Now, I want you both to stop here. They vanished after making the ram sign once more. Sasuke was only 25 feet ahead of him, whereas Naruto was about 30 feet. Before Itachi could speak, both snarled in exasperation. Move back to 50 feet and try again until you can do it. They continued to move back and forth for the next 2 hours until they were both able to land on the target from 50 feet. As the three of them made their way to the house to eat, Itachi remarked, good job, now shall we break for lunch? Makoto was setting the table when they got inside. She smiled and said, right on time. Both Itachi and Sasuke said, thanks Kasen. As they all sat down at the table, Naruto said, thank you Makoto-san. In her still joyful voice, she said, you're all welcome, and Naruto, just call me Makoto or Basan, okay. With a slight smile, Naruto said, okay, Basan. Makoto exclaimed, itadakimasu, as they all started to eat. After 30 minutes as they stood in the training field once more, Itachi said, the next lesson will be to follow me while I Shunshin. Ready? Itachi vanished in a swarm of ravens after both boys nodded. Appearing a few feet away from him, they both made the ram sign and followed suit. Itachi said as he vanished once more, too slow. You must learn to do it without the hand seal. Try again. However, it took some time to get the chakra correct without the seal, so neither boy could follow him this time. As the boys persisted in their attempts, Itachi reiterated, you have 1 hour to learn to Shunshin without the seal. They figured it out in about half an hour, which surprised Itachi. Itachi said, okay, let's get back to the lesson. Keep up with me, and vanished. His chakra signature was swiftly followed by both boys, who flickered away to land next to him. They followed Itachi again, but he just vanished again. For approximately an hour, this went on until the boys were able to keep up with Itachi. As he vanished into a whirlpool of leaves and reappeared a short distance away, he said, next is to make a distraction when you go. Most people in Konoha use leaves. As he repeated his demonstration, he stated, I prefer to use genjutsu to show ravens flying away. For now, just practice with leaves. As they started to kick up leaves and dust, they both said, yes sensei. Itachi halted them for the day after they had both performed a proper Shunshin and instructed them to return to the Hokage's office at 3 o'clock. 3 p.m. The office of the Hokage Sasuke, Itachi, and Naruto all entered the Hokage's office via Shunshin at precisely 3 o'clock. As they walked in, Hiruzen said to Itachi, so you taught them the Shunshin today, I see. Naruto and Sasuke grinned as Itachi remarked, yeah, they'll learn quickly. I believe they will both be good shinobi in no time. Naruto said, so Gigi, what are we here for? Hinata has to go home and get her belongings, and I fear that Hiyashi-san won't be happy about her not receiving the seal, so we are going to escort her. Naruto said, oh, I see, then that makes sense. After Hinata showed up a short while later, the group departed to retrieve her possessions from the Hyuga compound. According to Murphy's Law, Hinata tried to get through the episode without any issues, but that didn't work out. Alongside Hinata as Hinata entered her old home, she said, hello, Hiyashi-san. Hiyashi glared and said, Hinata, please come with me to receive your seal now. Actually Hiyashi-san, you cannot do that. By order of Hokage-sama. You can't fool me, girl. That old fool has no say in any clan affairs. I can do anything I wish to you because you are a Hyuga. At this point, Hinata was encircled by a huge leaf vortex, revealing Hiruzen, Itachi, Naruto, and Sasuke, the latter three of whom were activating their Sharingan. Hiruzen glared at Hiyashi and remarked, you are right, Hyuga-san, this old fool doesn't have a say in any clan-related matters. I do, however, control the fate of all other citizens and shinobi in this village. Yes, and your point? Hiyashi asked irritably. Hinata, as of this morning, is no longer a Hyuga. That being said, I have authority over her, and she will not be given your cursed seal. For you to do so would be assault on a civilian of Konoha, which is a crime punishable by imprisonment. Hiruzen responded with a smirk. She is my daughter and as such I have the final say on what happens to her. As the three tomo in his eyes started to spin quickly, Itachi glared at Hiyashi and said, wrong. According to Hinata-san here, you officially disowned and banished her this morning, which makes her no longer a Hyuga, nor your daughter. You will not touch her. Hiyashi walked over to Itachi and triggered his Byakugan, saying, you have no right to speak her Uchiha. I will do as I please within my clan. Itachi delivered a tanto at Hiyashi's throat in the following second. Itachi said, barely audible above a whisper, I will paint these walls with your blood if you take one more step. Hiyashi quickly turned off his Byakugan and moved away from Itachi. Now Hyuga-san. Hinata-san is going to retrieve her personal belongings, and you will not speak again. Furthermore, after we leave here, she has a restraining order against you. If you break the restraining order, your life is forfeit. Hiruzen said as Hinata left to retrieve her belongings just a few minutes later. Hiyashi scowled at the group as Hinata returned with a backpack full of her belongings. Later that evening Naruto and Hinata returned to their home to help her settle in after taking a few of her possessions from her previous residence. She didn't need to buy any furniture or other items because the room she picked was already furnished. The only thing she needed to buy now, aside from groceries because she refused to eat instant ramen for every meal, were new clothes because she had left all of her old ones aside except for the ones she wore to Hiyashi's house. She was wearing a lavender tank top shirt over a chainmail shirt and blue short shorts with chainmail leggings that ended just above the knees instead of the heavy coat and blue pants she had been wearing. Following Naruto's advice that she shouldn't try to hide her beauty, she had chosen the ensemble. After hearing that, she naturally passed out, raising Naruto's concerns about her health once more. Poor, unaware Naruto. As was to be expected, Hinata was actually quite anxious about living with her crush. She felt strange about living with him at the age of 8, even though they were both too young for anything improper. For his part, Naruto made every effort to make Hinata feel at home and at ease, but he was unable to do so. Since being kicked out of your house at 8 o'clock and having to move in with a friend isn't something that happens very often, he assumed she would recover after the shock subsided. After settling in, Hinata fell asleep quickly because she was exhausted from the events of the day. Naruto and Hinata both woke up and prepared for the following day. Before heading out to meet with Itachi, Naruto wished Hinata luck. With the Itachi team, Itachi told Naruto and Sasuke, today, I will be working on your taijutsu, shuriken jutsu, and developing Sasuke's Sharingan to the 3-tomo stage. Both of you will have your Sharingan active this whole day. Now I'd like to see you two spar, don't hold back. Then Naruto and Sasuke faced one another and bowed slightly. As the two boys charged at one another, Itachi said, begin. Sasuke swiftly produced a number of shuriken and hurled them at Naruto, who was able to avoid them with ease thanks to his Sharingan. They kept running until they came into contact, at which point Sasuke threw a barrage of punches and kicks at Naruto, who once more sidestepped them all. When Naruto eventually noticed a gap in Sasuke's stance, he punched him in the chest, sending him flying. Following through on his punch, Naruto grabbed Sasuke's shins, spun him around, and forcefully landed him on the ground before resuming his ready stance. Itachi didn't say anything before Sasuke quickly got back up into his own stance. "Sasuke, calm down a bit and think about your actions rather than rushing in." The boys ran at one another once more after Sasuke nodded his head. Sasuke did slow down and send his blows more precisely, but it didn't help much because Naruto could see them coming and either dodge or block them. Once again, Naruto launched a counterattack and swiftly defeated Sasuke. This time, Sasuke was able to hold out for a few minutes, but Naruto quickly dismantled his defense with his superior Sharingan. "Okay, that will be all for now. You have 10 minutes to rest before we move on to Shurikenjutsu." As they talked about their training, the two boys sat under a tree and drank water for the next 10 minutes. Itachi arranged them in a line in front of a big log after the others had finished, and he threw shuriken and kunai at them. Both boys hit the bullseye and nothing else in a matter of hours. Itachi had the boys spar again after a brief lunch break, letting them use ninjutsu this time. Before Sasuke started performing hand seals, they stood a few feet apart and stared at one another for a while. As he launched multiple volleyball-sized fireballs at Naruto, he uttered the words, "Kaden. Hosenka no Jutsu. Sweden. Suijinheki," Naruto yelled, blocking the fired balls with a wall of water. They struck the water wall, enveloping the area in a cloud of steam. Since he couldn't see through the steam, Sasuke immediately became vigilant. Several shuriken flew towards him out of the steam, proving that it had been successful. After swiftly drawing a kunai and knocking them down, he spun around and deflected a blow from Naruto, who was also brandishing a kunai. Sasuke flew back and threw his kunai at Naruto after they briefly locked into another taijutsu battle. After ducking beneath the kunai, Naruto hurled his own in Sasuke's direction. Sasuke avoided the kunai with ease and was perplexed by Naruto's grin. Before he knew it, a blade's cold point was pressing against his neck. Sasuke questioned in confusion, "How? When the stream obscured your vision, I hanged a clone into that kunai. After you dodged it, he changed back and here we are." Naruto laughed. In addition to smiling, Sasuke remarked, "Good job, for a loser. Well done, you two." With a rare smirk, Itachi stepped up and said, "The last item on the schedule for today is for you two to spar against me." The two boys simultaneously exclaimed, "Shit," as Itachi threw a wave of shuriken at them. The shuriken divided the boys as planned. Itachi said, "Kagebunshin no Jutsu." A lone clone materialized next to him. While the clone flew in Sasuke's direction, the real Itachi leapt toward Naruto. Alongside Naruto in his mind, Naruto cried out, "Damn, I have to get back to Sasuke if we are to last more than 1 minute against him." As he had to leap into the air to avoid more shuriken, Itachi caught up to him and kicked him hard in the chest before he could fall back to the ground. After flying backwards into a tree, Naruto collapsed on the ground in an attempt to catch his breath. Just as he was about to get back up, Itachi sent a huge fireball at him, forcing him to use a log instead of himself. In an attempt to defeat the clone and double-team the real Itachi, he shunned himself across the field to Sasuke's position as soon as he was out of the fireball's path. Unfortunately, he was rolled across the field and rendered immobile by a vicious backhand to the face as he phased into existence next to Sasuke. Itachi kicked Sasuke in the side and sent him hurtling through a tree a few feet away, saying, "One down. And there's two." The mindscape of Naruto. "What would you like, Kit?" The enormous fox snarled at Naruto. "I need some of your chakra, but without wanting to kill everything in sight," replied Naruto. "Absolutely not. You are in no danger of dying, therefore I am in no danger of dying. I don't care what I am. I need some chakra to see how I stack up with the boost." "I refuse." Naruto didn't even realize it at this point, but for some reason, his Sharingan changed into his Mangekyo. "You will give me your chakra, and leave me in control. You've been freeloading for far too long, so I demand rent," he said with determination. Kurama said in a monotone, "As you wish." Strange, he was just arguing and then gave in so easy. Oh well, no reason to look a gift horse in the mouth. Red chakra began to emanate from Naruto in waves before forming three tails as Itachi, who had just returned from the woods, sat Sasuke against a tree and headed to pick him up. With a hint of concern, Itachi wondered, can he control the Kyuubi's chakra or did the seal weaken? Naruto grinned as he felt the chakra of the nine-tailed demon pass through him without the bestial impulses, saying, "Wow, this is nice." "Naruto, is that you?" "Yes, Itachi-sensei. I talked the fox into loaning me his chakra to see how we match up with his power." Before they both vanished in a haze, Itachi said, "I see. Are you ready then?" Naruto threw a punch at Itachi, but it was blocked as they clashed toward the center of the field. However, Itachi was blown back a few feet by the force of the blow. Itachi started making hand seals as he slid backwards, and to his surprise, Naruto started imitating them while using his Mangekyo Sharingan. They both exclaimed, "Kaden! Gokakyu no Jutsu, Grand Fireball," simultaneously before launching a tremendous stream of fire at one another. For a brief moment, they fought for control in the center, and Naruto prevailed, forcing Itachi to replace himself with a log. As he created two shadow clones next to him, Itachi exclaimed, "Bunshin Deibakuha!" Clone Great Explosion, and they immediately charged at Naruto. Naruto just threw himself at the shadow clones, determined to slash through them and defeat them. Just as he was within striking range, he heard one of the clones say the single word, "Boom." Exploding clones so close to Naruto blew him back out of the clearing and through a tree. There was a reason why Itachi was the most feared shinobi in Konoha. He was aware that Naruto was not at all incapacitated by the fox's chakra shroud. It turned out to be a wise decision because, despite his preparation and Sharingan, he had just enough time to avoid the rocket that was Naruto's fist as the blonde bounded out of the forest. When Naruto realized he had missed, he attempted to halt and turn around for another blow, but he had too much momentum and kept sliding backwards across the ground before taking a deep breath that caused his chest to swell. Itachi flashed through a set of hand seals for his own jutsu, thinking, "What jutsu could this be that requires no hand seals, damned fox?" A stream of white flames the size of a school bus shot straight at Itachi as Naruto exhaled the breath he had been holding in. Itachi completed his seals and collected as much chakra as he could before a water dragon as large as Naruto's flamethrower emerged from the nearby pond and collided with it, causing the field to fill with steam. Itachi snorted, "Suiden. Suiryuden no Jutsu." That last technique was very taxing on him, and his chakra reserve was not very large. He was aware that he needed to finish quickly. He didn't have time to think about the problem before he had to avoid multiple fireballs the size of a Volkswagen that were escaping through the steam that covered the area. Even Itachi was unable to see through it due to its thickness, so he assumed Naruto was simply shooting aimlessly at him. What to do? I can't keep up this fight with him for long. I hate to use the Mangekyo on him, but I think it may be necessary. I think I've got it, Itachi thought as he kept avoiding the never-ending fireballs. Itachi exclaimed, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu." A clone materialized next to him and shot into the steam at breakneck speed. Itachi said, "Doden. Mogaragakure no Jutsu," and then vanished beneath the earth. The Itachi clone hurled multiple shuriken at Naruto as it charged directly at the fireball's origin. After the kunai was knocked down by Naruto's chakra-infused roar, he launched a red chakra arm in the direction of the clone, catching it before he could move. After winning this battle, Naruto smiled, but the Itachi he was holding poofed away. The real Itachi leapt out of the ground in front of him before he could react, and the two made eye contact. The world of Tsukiyomi. As Naruto gazed out at his surroundings, he discovered that he was pinned to a cross. Everything was in black and white, with a blood-red moon serving as an accent. As Naruto studied the face, he asked himself, "Genjutsu? Kai?" he exclaimed, unsuccessfully attempting to cancel it by pulsing his chakra. As his Mangekyo Sharingan emerged on the moon, Itachi's voice echoed, "Naruto.kun. I must congratulate you on a good fight thus far. No one has yet forced me to use this technique. This is the most powerful genjutsu in the world. In here, I control everything. Time, matter, and ever-space." Before Naruto knew it, he was standing in front of Itachi. "One day you too will be able to perform this technique. But now, I shall use it to win. In here, 72 hours will only amount to 1 second in the real world. Now for the next 3 days you will be forced to watch me eat ramen, and you will have none, haha." Itachi laughed wickedly. Hey, he doesn't want to damage Naruto's brain. He just wants to win the match and possibly have some fun. "No. That is inhumane," Naruto exclaimed, tears of anime streaming down his face. Then, imitating Naruto, Itachi called out, "Hey old man, one miso ramen with pork," and sat down, creating an exact replica of Ichiraku's. As he fought to get away, Naruto screamed, "No please, I can't take this." Before destroying bowl after bowl of ramen, Itachi gave him a menacing smirk. It never ended, and he would never be satisfied in his world. Naruto collapsed on the cross and passed out after just 2 hours of torture. Itachi instantly laughed and declared himself the winner of the genjutsu. Be advised that there is a very angry demon fox in Naruto's mindscape who plans to curse groupings. Kurama roared with a ferocity and murderous intent that no human had ever seen before. "Fucking insolent little human. I will fucking kill you if you ever hypnotize me with those goddamned accursed eyes again. Despite being shaken to his core and unable to force his mouth to produce words, Naruto somehow managed to remain conscious, which was a testament to his testicular fortitude. Don't just fucking stare at me. Explain yourself before I rip your head off and shit down your neck, the fox kept on screaming. Gulp, I don't fucking stutter in my presence. Naruto nearly lost control of his bladder at this point. I don't know what you mean by hypnotizing you, fox. Bullshit. And don't call me fox, you disrespectful little shit. You will address me as Kurama, Sama. How the hell did I hypnotize you? I asked for you chakra and you agreed. The hell I did. Your fucking Sharingan invaded my brain and forced me. Furious at the fox for his false charges, Naruto retorted, I barely know how to use the Sharingan, much less brainwash the strongest of all demons. Damn it, I don't know how you did it, but you hypnotized me. I don't believe you, Kurama yelled, I'll fucking eat you, as he extended his enormous paw and slammed it down on Naruto, narrowly missing. What the hell? Give me a chance to explain here. There's no explaining. You, shut the hell up. This is my mind and I am in charge. I will only tell you one more time, I didn't do anything to you. The fox merely snarled and touched Naruto's forehead with its tail. Now that he knew the fox couldn't harm him, Naruto let it happen. He was asleep when the tail abruptly touched his forehead and a white flash appeared, followed by darkness. Rewind. The sound of footsteps on water abruptly woke him up. His body spontaneously opened its eyes to reveal him and started talking. What do you want, Kit? I need some of your chakra, but without wanting to kill everything in sight, Naruto responded. Absolutely not. You are in no danger of dying, therefore I am in no danger of dying, his body said on its own once more. Naruto responded again, saying, I don't care what I am. I need some chakra to see how I stack up with the boost. Current Naruto's body said, I refuse, once more. At this point, Naruto, from Kurama's point of view, saw the three tomo in his eyes spin quickly before merging into his Mangekyo's well-known pattern. In a firm voice, he declared, you will give me your chakra, and leave me in control. You've been freeloading for far too long, so I demand rent. That was the end of it because Naruto, Kyuubi, was only thinking about that one thing. He then felt the chakra being freely drawn from his body and said, obey. Then everything flashed white again. The end of the flashback. Stunned by what he had just witnessed, Naruto exclaimed, what the hell was that? That, Kit, our meeting earlier from my perspective. Do you admit to using those damned eyes on me now? I can't deny it, but I had no idea I was doing that. Sometimes these eyes act on their own accord. Believe me, I don't intend to make your stay any more unpleasant than need be. I may need your help sometimes. I apologize for what happened. Kurama began calmly before exploding at the end, saying, I can sense that you tell the truth, so I will let it slide, but just this once, but still, don't expect me to freely help you now. You haven't earned any respect from me. I understand. I'll be seeing you later, Kurama-san. That is Kurama. Sama to you, brat. Naruto grinned arrogantly and remarked, as you just stated, Sama is a term of respect, and you haven't earned my respect yet. This makes sense. Please start so I can take a nap. In the academy, though it was a drag without Naruto and Sasuke, who had left for a fast-track Anbu school, Hinata sat boredly at her table, listening to Iruka discuss the 5 different elemental countries. She secretly wished she could follow in their footsteps, but they were exceptional prodigies, and she was simply not good enough. I sigh. One day, I'll be able to stand next to you rather than walk behind you, Naruto-kun. Sasuke-kun. However, how? She needed help to catch up to her friends, but who could teach her? Hinata thought as she lost focus during the lesson. She has good chakra control, so she would be a good genjutsu user to complement her Jiyuken. On the opposite side of Konoha in a dango shop, Achu, the woman who made the noise, was one of the most attractive women in Konoha, according to some. She was about 22 years old, had brown hair that fell just below her shoulders, deep red eyes, and wore a red one-armed shirt underneath a white dress that resembled a sash and ended just above her thighs. She also wore chainmail underneath the dress to cover her upper thighs and cleavage. Chan, you are blessed. The woman, who was probably the second most attractive woman in the village, despite being despised by many for reasons that were beyond her control, spoke enthusiastically. She was about 18 years old, dressed in short shorts and a basic chainmail t-shirt, and wore a knee-length trench coat that was open down the middle, leaving little room for interpretation. On the lower half of her body, she wore an orange miniskirt that, like the trench coat, left little room for interpretation. While rubbing her nose, Kurenai remarked. Thanks Ko-chan, someone must be talking about me. I wonder if a man was involved? With a big smile and sly eyes, Anko answered. Team Itachi is back. With Naruto starting to stir, Itachi sat back against a tree, waiting for the wounded youths that made up his team to wake up. He reasoned that since he had the fox to heal his problems, he would be the first to wake up, even if he had experienced severe, to him, mental trauma. Sasuke had just been shot in the head during their brief battle, so he wouldn't be too far behind Naruto. Naruto opened his eyes and looked around to get his bearings after waiting for approximately 5 more minutes. Then he recalled the terrible episode that had initially knocked him out, and he started to cry more anime tears and scream. In his typically stoic tone, Itachi said, Naruto-kun, please calm down. Naruto continued to weep. Naruto-kun. Itachi now raised his voice a little. Naruto kept sobbing. After performing some hand seals, Itachi calmly remarked, Suiden. Suiryuden no jutsu. He then spat out a tiny water dragon, which struck Naruto and soaked him. Ah, what the devil? The now drenched Naruto, emerging from his ramen-induced frenzy, yelled. All right, then. Earlier, you were blowing my genjutsu away. Oh god, that was terrible, Itachi. Sensei, you are a sadist, I swear, Naruto said, his eyes widening once more at the thought. Itachi, who seemed to be feeling much happier than usual here lately, couldn't help but laugh at that. I had to end the fight quickly because I was running out of chakra when I faced off against you with the Kyuubi. How did you use its chakra so effectively, by the way? I used the Mangekyo to subtly hypnotize it. I didn't even realize I had used the Mangekyo until I spoke with him again, so is there any way you could teach me more about it? I'll get to work on that shortly. As Sasuke started to stir, Itachi answered, I will fit it in. We have a lot to cover over the next couple of years. Itachi began to look around and said to his younger brother, welcome back Sasuke-kun. We lost the spar, I suppose. Sasuke laughed as he said that. Oh, yes. Bad, Naruto answered, chuckling himself. Alongside Hinata. Hinata was relieved to be home at last, hoping Naruto had finished his training for the day and was waiting at home when Iruka finally made the decision to end his discussion and dismiss the class for the day. She thought with a smile and a flush, Naruto-kun, waiting on me, at our home. Since she forbade Naruto from eating ramen at every meal, she made the decision to stop at a dango shop on the way home to get dinner for herself and Naruto. When she entered, she noticed 2 attractive young women sitting at the table in the corner. They appeared familiar in some way, but she couldn't immediately identify them. The older Hinata would have been embarrassed, but she approached them with her newfound self-assurance. Hi there. She approached the 2 women in the corner and said, I apologize for not knowing your names, but I think I recognize you somehow. Anko made the decision to respond, saying, I don't remember ever seeing you before Gaki. You appear to be a Hyuga based on the look in your eyes, so I doubt your powerful clan would have given me any attention at all. Ko-chan, treat her with kindness, Kurenai responded. Now, because of their attitude, she had never liked the Hyuga before, so hearing that the clan head had disowned his own daughter was the final nail in the coffin. My current identity is Hinata Namikaze. The young man with the white eyes replied, I was expelled from the Hyuga clan. Namikaze? Like in the Namikaze of Yondaime? Kurenai inquired. She had a crush on Minato during his lifetime, just like all other adolescent girls at the time. Yes, since he had extra rooms in the Namikaze estate, his son Naruto took me in. You seem too young to be living with your boyfriend, don't you? Anko's playful question caused Hinata to flush deeply. His name isn't boyfriend. Just an friend. You seem unhappy about that, don't you? Anko went on, her grin growing larger and more malevolent by the moment. Go away from the poor girl, Anko. Hi, Hinata. My name is Kurenai Yuhi. I regret learning about your clan. Then Hinata said, anyways, I'm sorry I bothered you too. I could have sworn that I recognized you from somewhere, but I guess not. She bowed and turned to go after Anko, feed at Kurenai. Hinata, you are in the Ninja Academy, correct? Hold on a minute. Yes. You must have studied chakra control in great detail because you were a Hyuga, right? Yes, I have very good control, as is standard in the Hyuga. So, how would you feel about becoming my apprentice? I'd love to witness a Hyuga's strength unhindered by the regulations that forbid learning anything other than clan culture. Hearing that made Hinata's eyes light up a little because she had just discovered her way to catch up to Sasuke and Naruto. I recognize you from there. You're the Genjutsu mistress, right? Hinata exclaimed. I am that, and if you agree, My friend Anko Midarashi, also known as the Snake Mistress, will probably assist you with your training on occasion. What are your thoughts on my offer, then? Learning under such esteemed names would be an honor. I agree. Well done. Kurenai grinned broadly and spoke in a cheerful manner. With a slight bow, Hinata said, "Thank you Kurenai, sensei." Sensei, I'm not that old, hell no. Kurenai let out a mental scream. Kurenai retorted, "Make it Nai. Chan, I'm far too young to be Khaled-sensei." The well-known moniker made Hinata smile a little. "Thank you, Nai. Chan." In a dimly lit room with all of the village's Anbu present, Hiruzen Sarutobi said, "Namikaze Naruto, please step forward." Naruto emerged from the shadows and stood at attention, saying, "Hi, Hokage. Sama." A new man appeared at this moment, wearing a white cloak and a dog mask while wearing the standard Anbu gear. The man said, "Please have a seat Namikaze." Naruto approached the single chair in the center of the room and said, "Hi, Tora. Taiko." After that, Tora gave Naruto a kunai and held out a vial of black ink, saying, "Cut your palm and pour some of your blood into this ink." Without flinching, Naruto cut open his palm and allowed the blood to drip into the vial. Tora ordered, "And now your chakra." When Naruto extended his hand over the vial, a blue haze swirled into it, briefly turning the ink blue. "Do you swear your loyalty to the Hokage and the village of Konoha alone, Namikaze Naruto?" Tora asked. "I do. And do you pledge to protect and defend this village and her people by doing everything within your power, even if it means giving up your life?" "I do." Tora started to mark Naruto with the typical Anbu tattoo on his left shoulder, saying, "Then by the power vested in me as the commander of Konoha's Anbu, I hereby welcome you to the Brotherhood." After the tattoo was finished, Naruto said, "It is an honor. Please come with me to receive your mask and uniform." Naruto got up and said, "Hi, Taiko." The two then departed the room. They went through a corridor and into another room, where Tora went to a shelf and came back with a bundle of clothes, which he gave to Naruto. "Now pick your mask," he said. "Remember that while you are on duty, your mask will also be your name. Additionally, since your identity must be kept secret from everyone outside of Anbu, your mask will be your lifeblood." Naruto glanced at the wall in front of him for a few seconds before approaching and removing a fox mask from the wall. "I suspected you would pick that one. You are aware that no one has worn that mask in 10 years? I think you'll honor it, but the last Kitsune committed suicide soon after the Kyuubi's attack." After giving a nod, Naruto fastened his mask and used chakra to make the inside transparent so he could see through it. "Get dressed and meet me back in the main hall for Uchiha Sasuke's induction." After Tora left, Naruto hurriedly changed into the black and gray Anbu gear and hurried into the main hall to see the process repeated for Sasuke. "Hi," Naruto said. Sasuke chose the mask, name, Taka, by going through the same procedure that Naruto had just finished. As the room erupted in applause, Tora said, "I would like everyone to give congratulations to our newest member of Delta Squad. Kitsune and Taka. Weasel, Neko, would you like to meet your new teammates?" The two boys were approached by Itachi and the Anbu with the long purple hair and cat mask, who gave them shoulder pats and said, "Congratulations, Kitsune, Taka. Having you on my team is an honor," Itachi remarked. Sasuke and Naruto simultaneously responded, "It is an honor to serve under you, Weasel, Taiko. Now get ready. We have a mission, and you have 30 minutes to meet me at the North Gate. Don't get used to waiting for 30 minutes, by the way. No matter what you're doing, you'll be expected to be in front of Hokage Sama within 15 minutes of being called." "Hi, Taiko." Alongside Hinata as Anko watched Hinata assault the training dummy in front of her, she said, "Try again." "Senei-jashu." As she said, "Hake Sanjuni Sho. 8 trigrams, 30.2 palms." Hinata extended her left hand in the direction of the dummy, sending 2 snakes out towards it. The snakes wrapped around the dummy's torso, jerked it back towards Hinata, and then vanished as she said, "Hake Sanjuni Sho." When the dummy was within range, she unleashed a barrage of palm strikes laced with 32 chakras, tearing it apart. "Well done, Hinata." Anko dropped into her ready stance and said, "Now I want you to spar against me." Before she started performing hand seals, Hinata rushed towards Anko and launched a series of Jayuken strikes, all of which Anko was able to avoid. Anko then kicked Hinata in the ribs, knocking her back a few feet. "Kaden. Enden. Flame bullet," she yelled as she blasted Hinata with a huge ball of flame. With haste, Hinata performed her own hand seals and exclaimed, "Sweden. Suijin Heki." Anko immediately assumed her defensive stance, prepared for anything, as the attacks collided and created a wall of water to block the fireball. Hinata, who could see through the steam to some extent, performed a series of hand seals and muttered, "Sweden. Sweden. Waterfang bullet," as the water droplets in the air formed into multiple drill-shaped balls of water and were launched at Anko. On instinct alone, Anko barely managed to avoid the attack before she extended her arms and unleashed a number of snakes towards Hinata, who managed to dodge a few of them and kill a few with palm strikes, but there were too many and she was ensnared by them. She tried to escape but was unsuccessful as she was repeatedly sliced by a wave of kunai that Anko threw at her. Gosh! As Anko released the snakes and she collapsed to the ground, Hinata swore. "Don't get so upset, Gaki, you're still a few years too young to beat me, but you're doing good. Yes, Hina-chan, you have made good progress over the past 2 years." Kurenai patted Hinata on the shoulder and added, "I think you'll be almost Jonin level by the time you graduate the academy." Through a smile, Hinata said, "Thank you, Nai-chan. I'm happy to see you arrived promptly. Like a rite of passage for all new Anbu, this mission will be straightforward. You two are to demolish a bandit camp as we head north toward our borders." As Naruto and Sasuke materialized next to him, Itachi remarked, "Anbu don't typically do these kinds of missions, but as I mentioned, it's just to get you used to the way we operate." Without saying another word, the group left the gate with Yugao on the left, Itachi on the right, Sasuke in the back, and Naruto in front. Both boys merely nodded. When the group halted on a tree branch after traveling through the trees for approximately 2 hours, Naruto held up his hand and started signing words to the others: "Small camp. 1 Chunin and 12 mercenaries. Sasuke gets bandits, and I'll take the leader." Over his shoulder, Naruto saw Sasuke nod, and the two quickly vanished from the tree. A group of bandits were eating at a campfire when Sasuke appeared directly behind them. They didn't even realize he was there until 3 of them fell to the ground headless, and the other 3 of them jumped up with rudimentary rusty swords and tried to attack him, but he just ducked and avoided the blows before all 3 of them fell as well. Sasuke sheathed his tanto and vanished again, this time to the tent where he could feel the other men sleeping. He glanced up to see Naruto emerge from outside the leader's tent, nod slightly, and then proceed through hand seals more quickly than the eye could follow before blasting a stream of fire over the sleeping men, instantly killing them. The camp's Chunin leader heard the commotion outside and hurried out to see the fire, just as he was about to charge at Sasuke, when he felt a blade grab him from behind and touch his neck with its cold point. "Please don't kill me. I apologize, I'll give you cash, crack, or anything else you want." As the man's head rolled to the ground, Naruto said, "Pathetic." After giving Sasuke a quick glance, the two of them leapt to opposite ends of the base and performed hand seals in perfect unison before extinguishing a huge dragon made of flames. The 2 dragons ravaged the camp, leaving only ash in their wake as the Delta Squad charged towards the village. As they jumped from tree to tree, Itachi remarked, "Good job, both of you." The following morning inside Anbu Training Ground 4, 4 figures in black and gray stood in a circle inside a sizable clearing surrounded by walls. Large panels with the numbers 1.4 on them were scattered across the walls. You will learn how to fight while being aware of your surroundings with this exercise. Additionally, it will teach you how to fight with different partners. Ultimately, it will teach you that a person who is a comrade today might not be tomorrow. 4 numbers will be illuminated in different colors on those wall panels. Your team will be represented when 2 or more of the numbers are the same color. It will change at random, so be sure to pay attention. As the panels came to life, Itachi said, "I am 1, Neko is 2, Kitsune is 3, and Taka is 4, begin." Panels 1 and 3 were blue, while panels 2 and 4 were red and yellow, respectively. Itachi and Naruto exchanged a quick glance before jumping apart, with Naruto appearing in front of Yugao and reflexively blocking a blow from her sword with his own. Then, while performing hand seals, Naruto broke away and leapt back to gain some distance. "Futon. Daitapa. Great breakthrough," Naruto said as he blew out a large wave of wind. Yugao immediately leapt up and over the blade of wind and charged towards Naruto before splitting into 3 copies of herself. The 2 clones vanished as Yugao leapt into the air, and the 3 appeared beside Naruto with remarkable speed and slashed into him as Yugao exclaimed, "Mikazuki no Mai, the Crescent Moon's Dance." Sasuke was already performing hand seals when Itachi appeared in front of him and said, "Kaden. Gokakyu no Jutsu." As he blew out a large fireball, Sasuke barely had time to jump to the side and avoid the fireball before Itachi appeared beside him and kicked him in the face, sending him skyward. As he reached the peak and started to fall, Itachi reappeared and dropped an axe kick onto his stomach, sending him back towards the ground. Just as he was about to slam into the ground, Itachi reappeared and punched him in the chest, but Sasuke vanished in a puff of smoke. Raiden. Raifu. Lightning breeze. Sasuke said as the attack dispersed. The numbers then shifted once more, going from 1 blue to 2, 3, and 4 yellow. The two blurred away to confront Itachi after Naruto stopped mid-strike on Yugao. While Naruto and Sasuke sat back waiting for an opening, Yugao swiftly launched her katana attack. When she finally left one, Itachi wasted no time in kicking her in the face, sending her flying back away from him. As soon as she was gone, he heard Naruto and Sasuke say at the same time, Futon. Renkuden. Raiden, drilling air bullet. Raifu. Sasuke's lightning wave swiftly encircled Naruto's air bullets, intensifying and speeding up the attacks. Raifu no Dangan. Lightning breeze bullets, Naruto said as he fired of several of the lightning bullets. Itachi dodged most of them with ease, only taking one good hit. He then began doing hand seals and said, Kaden. Hosenka Bofu no Jutsu. Phoenix Flower Storm. As he spat out hundreds of balls of fire that swirled and danced about the field, making it impossible to dodge them all. Naruto and Sasuke were both burned in several places before the attack ended. Once more the two started doing hand seals and simultaneously said, Kaden. Karyu Enden. Before they each spat out a massive stream of fire that changed into the shape of a dragon, they said, Fire Dragon Missile. As the big creatures chased him around the field, Itachi started to run, jump, and dodge them. Eventually, he was able to move to the side of Sasuke and kick him violently, knocking him across the field towards Naruto. Naruto saw him coming and had to jump and dispel his attack to avoid him, but Itachi was on him before he could hit the ground. Itachi drove him into the ground with a foot into his solar plexus, causing a large crater. Once they touched the ground, Itachi leapt into the air with practiced ease, dodging a swipe from Sasuke's Tanto, then flipped back to the ground and smashed Sasuke in the back of the head with an elbow, rendering him unconscious. After a few minutes, Yugao woke up, and Itachi proceeded to gather his three partners around the field and waited for them to regain consciousness. He then started healing the other two, and after a few more minutes, the entire team was conscious once more, and they all parted ways. The aroma of delectable food cooking welcomed Naruto as he entered his home. Damn, I never get over that. With a slight smile, he thought, this must be what it's like to have a real family. You're just in time, Naruto.kun. Hinata's voice could be heard. Anime tears were streaming down Naruto's face as he shunned from the house's door and entered the kitchen. That smells great, Hinata. Chan, what is it? Ramen. Since we didn't get to do it yesterday, it's your celebration dinner for making Anbu, Hinata said, grinning. After giving Hinata a hug that caused her to flush, Naruto exclaimed, thanks, Hinata. Chan. There is no better friend than you. It's yours, Naruto.kun. Making Anbu at the age of 10 is not something that happens very often. Naruto rolled over, glanced at his alarm clock, and groaned as he woke up to the well-known chakra-tingling sensation from the Anbu tattoo on his left shoulder. At 3 in the morning, what might be going on? Even though he knew from his brief time at ANBU that a lot of things happened at strange hours, he muttered to himself. In a few minutes, he was dressed and walked out his door to appear in the Hokage's office after he slid out of bed and directed some chakra to the seal tattoo on his forearm, which caused his Anbu uniform and mask to appear in a puff of smoke. The rest of his team quickly gathered around him before Hiruzen said, the Yamanaka clan heiress has been abducted, which is why I have called you here tonight. I trust you to finish the job because Delta Squad is our best team and we don't yet know who the attackers are. Before he and his team fled, Itachi said, Hi, Hokage. Sama, it shall be done. They resurfaced at the Yamanaka compound, where the Anbu patrol investigating the scene led them north, and then vanished again in a flash. A few minutes later, they discovered the group's trail, and a moment later, Itachi gave the group the signal to stop. They all saw that there were 6 people in the clearing in front of them, with Ino bound by wire, and they could sense 2 more farther ahead. Neko, take the 2 northmost. The 3 farthest west will go to me. Taka takes the center too. They all nodded when Itachi said in sign language, Kitsune, take out the one by the girl and get her out. Then, with a flick of his wrist, they were gone. With her katana drawn and in a battle stance, Yugao landed behind the 2 men who had split off from the group. The men sensed her land and immediately turned and fell into their own stank before one of them said, Konoha.san, to what do we owe the pleasure? The man said sarcastically. Yugao responded by dashing towards them in a blur. The second man jumped back out of the way while the first pulled a kunai and went to deflect her strike. She swung down and the sound of metal hitting metal was heard only briefly before the man fell to the ground dead and she said, Mikazuki no Mai. Before jumping at the second man, she plunged her sword into the ground and performed a series of hand seals. He dropped to a defensive stance with a kunai, but was startled when she appeared to vanish. He attempted to make a ram seal to dispel a genjutsu, but was unable to move his hands. What the hell is this? When he realized he was stuck to a tree, he said aloud. Yugao slid her upper body out of the tree trunk and used her katana to cut the man's throat, saying, Megan. Jubaku Satsu. Demonic illusion. Tree binding death. The three men were gathered around their campfire when Itachi leapt down into the clearing between them. Before they knew he was there, one of them had fallen to the ground dead, with a kunai protruding from the base of his skull. The other two hurled several shuriken and kunai at him, but he quickly vanished in a swarm of ravens and reformed immediately behind them. Itachi quickly buried another kunai into one of the men before the other turned around and swung at him with his own kunai. Once more, Itachi vanished in a flock of ravens and reappeared behind the man, with a kunai buried in his brain. Sasuke appeared between the two men who were standing and talking away from the main group, and he attempted to stab one of them with a kunai, but he was blocked. The man who blocked his kunai threw a punch at Sasuke's face, and the other man tried to sweep his feet. In a display of athleticism, Sasuke jumped and rolled his body to the side, avoiding both attacks, before he launched his elbow up and into the man's jaw. The force of the blow caused the man's head to snap back, and he staggered slightly backwards, but it was all he needed as he grabbed the man and twisted his body around, putting it in the way of a kunai in the other man's hands. The kunai buried itself to the hilt in the man's chest as Sasuke pushed him off and appeared beside the second man, ending his life with a kunai to the throat. Naruto fell from the trees next to the man holding Ino and heard him say, "Don't worry honey, I won't be too rough as long as you help me out." The fact that the man was considering raping a 10-year-old girl infuriated him. Naruto glared at the man. "Let her go you bastard. What if I don't? Like a kid like you could hurt me." The man replied with a smirk. It was then that the rest of Naruto's team dropped from the trees and killed his men. His eyes went wide briefly as he realized that he was going to die. He quickly grabbed Ino and held a kunai to her throat. "Move and I kill the girl." In a desperate attempt to live, he said. The man was holding a clone while Naruto held the bound Ino. Naruto smirked behind his mask for a moment before a puff of smoke appeared, and his eyes changed to his Mangekyo's form as he made eye contact with the man. 2 seconds later, the man fell to the ground, his eyes glazed over, having been skinned alive for 3 days in a row in the Tsukiyomi world. Naruto then proceeded to seal the man into a scroll and free Ino before he picked her up bridal style and the group left the clearing. Ino began to stir a few minutes after they had left. "What hap? Ah, jerk, let me down." As she began beating Naruto, she screamed. Naruto said, "Ino-san," before the cries overpowered his voice. "Ah, Ino-san would you? Ah, Ino, relax. You expect me to calm down after kidnapping me?" Sasuke went on. "Actually, he rescued you. Is that you, Sasuke?" When Sasuke turned to Itachi for assistance, he thought, "Shit." Itachi just nodded his head and looked at Naruto as well. "Yes, it's me. However, Naruto is the one who saved you," Sasuke remarked, taking off his mask. Naruto. Was Naruto the last to die? Then, while Ino was still in his arms, Naruto removed his mask to reveal himself to her. "No, it's Naruto, who's hot," with a slight flush, Ino pondered. As her gooey eyes darted between him and Sasuke, Naruto remarked, "No, Kitsune Naruto, Anbu operative, though no one else is to know that." "Why? Are you all in Anbu?" "Wow, our ages are identical and," Ino remarked. Naruto replied, "Yes, but like I said, that is a secret. We only revealed ourselves because you recognized my voice," Sasuke continued. "Oh, I'm sorry about that. Don't worry. Simply put, don't tell anyone else, I mean, anyone. Not even Sakura." "How did we have to know all the shinobi and shinobi.to.be in this village?" Naruto replied. Ino blushed a lot when she noticed at this random moment that Naruto was still carrying her. Could you put me down, Naruto-kun? Oh no, did I just refer to him as Naruto-kun? As he lowered her to her feet, Naruto said, "Sure thing." He frowned in his mind and thought, "She just called me Naruto-kun, just great." After that, there was a relative quiet. Naruto and Sasuke returned their masks and dropped Ino off at her father's house before reporting to the Hokage's office. Itachi and his group appeared in front of Hiruzen's desk, and he said, "Hello Hokage-sama. I'm sure you have a good report, Delta Squad." "Yes. There is no longer any threat. They looked like a bunch of missing nin. The leader was brought back for questioning. What about the girl? Itachi laughed and said, she has been returned, and possibly betrothed. How? She figured out the identity of 2 of our operatives, and I think the fell for Kitsune. The elderly Hokage couldn't contain his laughter at that point, saying, Naruto-kun sure does have a way with people. Everyone could see that Naruto was blushing a little because they had taken off their masks to report. Don't worry, Naruto-kun. You're a good young man, and it will work out. Your father also had this issue, Hiruzen remarked. Naruto pouted, HMPH. Hiruzen said, anyway, thank you all for resolving this issue so quickly, you may be dismissed. Naruto was the only one who did not leave the Ashunshin. With a laugh, Hiruzen said, good night loverboy. Hiruzen suddenly burst out laughing after Naruto let out a low growl, and a moment later, Naruto even smiled a little. Don't worry Naruto-kun, all good shinobi have to deal with it. Yay I guess, but I already kinda like Hinata-chan, so the others are wasting their time, Naruto said. In a playful manner, Hiruzen remarked, actually, since you are the last of both the Uzumaki and Namikaze, you fall under the Clan Restoration Act. The Clan Restoration Act? Hiruzen continued to tease, it means that if a man is the last of his clan, then he may take more than one wife. Before passing out from the blood gushing from his nose, Naruto began, but Alright, Naruto-kun is a pervert in disguise. As he picked up Naruto and carried him home to bed, Hiruzen thought, who would have thought? It was 8 o'clock when Naruto turned to his alarm clock after waking up to the smell of breakfast cooking. Well. As he rolled out of bed and went downstairs wearing only his sleeping shorts, Naruto thought to himself, I'm glad I don't have anything to do today. When he came downstairs, he smiled and said, good morning, Hinata-chan. When Hinata noticed that Naruto was shirtless, she began to say, morning but then stopped. Hinata-chan. Are you alright? When she regained consciousness, she said, I remembered something Nai-chan told me. I'm fine, Naruto-kun. As he helped her up, Naruto grinned naively and said, oh, okay, then. So, Naruto-kun, what are you up to today? As they sat down to breakfast, Hinata inquired. Since I have today off, I believe I will attempt to complete the Rasengan. After school, how are you spending your time? I'm going to train with Nai-chan and Ko-chan for a while. You're going to be good by the time you graduate, Naruto said with a sincere smile. Yes, I will prove to my clan that they were mistaken to expel me. As Hinata left the room, she exclaimed. Clan, you're really going to wait? The Clan Restoration Act, Gigi. As the nosebleed returned, Naruto yelled. Naruto went to Hiruzen's office after cleaning himself up after the nosebleed stopped. Hiruzen greeted Naruto as he entered, saying, hello Naruto-kun, good morning. Naruto mockingly retorted, I hate you Gigi. What's the reason for that? When you mentioned the Clan Restoration Act, did you mean it? Has Naruto-kun made the decision to take multiple wives? With a seductive smile, Hiruzen said. No. God, perverts built this village. With a flushed face, Naruto answered. Don't worry, Naruto-kun. Everyone has a little pervert inside of them. Furthermore, the CRA is real. Its purpose is to ensure that our strong clans and Kekkei Genkai continue to exist. But I don't have a Kekkei Genkai Gigi. You do have the Sharingan, but we're not sure if the eye implanted into your DNA is sufficient for reproduction. Additionally, you have 2 of Konoha's most potent techniques, the Hiraishin and the Rasengan. Alright, HMPH. Don't worry, you should only get married out of love, nobody will pressure you into anything. The CRA does not require you to love more than one girl. It simply states that you can. Oh, I see. That will be alright. However, I doubt I'll be able to love more than one girl. Still sporting his lustful smile, Hiruzen answered, we'll see in time. Gigi. Do you need anything? I'm heading to the store to get some rubber balls so I can practice my Rasengan. As Naruto walked out the door, Hiruzen said, no, but thank you Naruto-kun. Immediately after Naruto left, a fresh voice called out through the window, hey, old man, how are you? Hi, Jiraiya-kun. What makes you happy? Just stopping by. The Gaki appears to be doing well for himself. Yes, he is, and he is already in Anbu. He is very talented, but it wouldn't hurt to stay and assist him for a while. He simply went into town to purchase materials for his Rasengan education. I can swing that, it would be almost impossible to learn the Rasengan on his own. In actuality, he has already reached the last step. He picks things up quickly and is a true shinobi. I'm happy that a few years ago, Itachi took him in and trained him. Uchiha Itachi? Yes, Itachi trained Naruto-kun and Sasuke for the last 2 years. I understand. I guess I can remain and provide some assistance to the Gaki. Before Naruto returned to the door with an unlit cigarette in his mouth and a sealing scroll in his hand, Jiraiya and Hiruzen sat there catching up for a while. Hi, Gigi. Who is your visitor? As he lit his cigarette with a low, power fire jutsu, Naruto uttered those words. Naruto-kun, when did you start smoking? Hiruzen inquired. I figured, hey, why not, since I can't get cancer because of the fox. I guess that's a good point. Anyway, this is my former pupil Jiraiya. Naruto made a little bow and said, nice to meet you Jiraiya, Sama. Gaki, nice to meet you as well. I'm happy that at least one individual respects me. Although Jiraiya and Naruto could hear it, Hiruzen muttered under his breath, just because he doesn't know you yet. Jiraiya swore and said, I hate you sensei. Anyways Gaki, how would you like some help with the Rasengan? Naruto threw his cigarette into Hiruzen's ashtray and remarked, it would be an honor to learn under one of the Sannin. Jiraiya grinned broadly and remarked, I could get used to this kind of respect. Jiraiya made a face. Fault when Hiruzen muttered again, I wouldn't if I were you. Jiraiya said, okay Gaki, meet me at training ground 1 in 15 minutes. After he had stood up. How about we just go to my house and use the training field there? No can do. I gotta be close to the hot springs so I can do research for my books. Books? Icha, the best book in the elemental nations? On his way to the training ground, Naruto simply walked out the door, sweating. Jiraiya stood across from Naruto and said, so Gaki, how good are you? Well I guess you know I'm Anbu, so that says a lot doesn't it? It means that you are good, but not Sannin good. Spar with me so that I know your abilities. Jiraiya stood motionless as Naruto dropped into his battle stance and used his Sharingan. Naruto questioned, aren't you going to get in a stance? Nah, you won't touch me anyways, there's no need. I'll make you regret that. Gaki, you're 100 years too young to lay a finger on me. Go whenever you're ready. When he said, go, Naruto vanished and resurfaced just inches from Jiraiya's head, his foot pressed against his forearm. Jiraiya yawned and remarked, gotta do better than that Gaki. Jiraiya just stood there while Naruto tried to think of a plan. Damn, he's good, I guess he's not a Sannin for nothing. Then, Naruto produced a number of shuriken and hurled them at Jiraiya, who effortlessly sidestepped them. Then, growling, Naruto blew out a huge ball of fire in Jiraiya's direction while yelling, Kaden. Gokakyu no Jutsu, and performing a series of hand seals. Just grinning a little, Jiraiya stomped his foot to the ground, causing a huge wall of earth to rise and deflect the attack. Naruto screamed, damn you, and hurled more shuriken at Jiraiya. Jiraiya also avoided these, but she had to leap back fast to avoid Naruto's kick. After shouting, Futon, Rinkuden, and going through some hand seals, Naruto began shooting Jiraiya with a series of air bullets. After dodging the blows, Jiraiya performed a series of hand seals and exclaimed, Kaden, Enden. As a huge stream of fire erupted from his mouth. However, he was unaware that Naruto simultaneously used the jutsu and copied the seals. When the two enormous fireballs collided, Jiraiya remained steadfast while Naruto was flung back several feet by the ensuing explosion. In a blur, Naruto leapt to his feet and raced back towards Jiraiya, then kicked him in the head, which he simply dodged. After the kick, he delivered a backward elbow that Jiraiya easily deflected, then he punched Naruto in the ribs with a loud crack and sent him flying. Okay Gaki, like I said, you're good, but not Sannin good. You're learning the Rasengan, right? Yay, my dad left me a scroll with it, I'm on the 3rd step already. As Naruto took out his sealing scroll and opened a rubber ball, Jiraiya said, okay, show me. After he began spinning his chakra inside the ball, it briefly deformed before flattening out. Jiraiya took a marker from, and said, not bad for learning on your own, you've almost got it, but let me give you a tip, and sketched a Konoha emblem on Naruto's hand. What's that for? Inquired Naruto. Before vanishing in a whirlpool of leaves, Jiraiya remarked, a focus point. The point of the Rasengan is to focus and compress a massive amount of chakra into a small point. Concentrate on the swirl, and it'll help. I'm going to research, find me if you finish that. Then Naruto made another attempt, this time concentrating on the leaf, and it was much longer before the ball popped. Naruto grinned as he said, hey, it actually worked, as 100 shadow clones materialized in the clearing around him and began to practice. With the clones, Naruto only needed an hour to figure it out, so he quickly set out to locate Jiraiya. He discovered him giggling and scrawling in a notebook while perched on a tree branch with a view of the hot springs female section. As Naruto leapt to the tree next to Jiraiya, he thought, perv. Jiraiya didn't even realize Naruto was there because he was too focused on his research. Hey Arrow. Sensei, I'm done. Jiraiya whispered, shush, you'll let em know we're here. My bad. I'm done with the third step, what now? Give me a minute here, sit back and enjoy the sights. Naruto looked out at the women and said, you have 5 minutes. Naruto thought as his face flushed, this ain't so bad. Damn, he's rubbing off on me. Jiraiya asked Naruto, who was now absorbed in the hot springs face, like what you see Gaki. Yay unha. Naruto stumbled out without thinking. Laughing, Jiraiya said, hey Gaki, we're supposed to be training. So much passion at such a young age, it does my heart good. Shish. As he grabbed Naruto and leapt from the tree, Jiraiya exclaimed, oh sorry. Wait, we have things to do, come on. It made Jiraiya laugh again. I never thought I would be the one to drag someone away from the hot springs. After they had both calmed down, Jiraiya said, now then, Arrow. Gaki, show me the final step. Nothing happened when Naruto took a rubber ball from his scroll and held it in his palm for a brief moment. Jiraiya held up his hand in the shape of a Rasengan and said, good job. All that's left is to do it with no balloon. After focusing on the leaf on his palm, Naruto began to spin the chakra repeatedly until it stabilized and transformed into a perfect sphere. Good job Arrow. Gaki. Hey, don't call me that. You called me Arrow. Sensei, because it's true. Yay, and you're an Arrow. Gaki, I am not, kid, I had to drag you away from the hot springs. I had to drag you away. With a drop of sweat, Naruto remarked, okay, maybe I am a perv. Jiraiya nodded toward a tree and said, anyway, drive the attack into that tree over there. With a nod, Naruto vanished, slamming his hand into the closest tree. Before the tree burst into splinters, the chakra sphere in his hand drilled itself into it in a perfect circle about halfway. Sweet! Exclaimed Naruto. Now, on to the next thing. Do you have a summoning contract already? Nope. Well, how would you like to sign the Toad contract? It would be an honor. Jiraiya bit his thumb, performed some hand seals, and then slammed his hand down, saying, okay then. Sign here in your blood, and then put your handprints. Before signing his name to the contract, Naruto followed instructions and cut his hand. Before the scroll rolled back up and vanished, it briefly glowed green before the glow faded. Jiraiya asked, now then, did you copy the hand seals? And Naruto gave a nod. Okay, just prick your thumb and do the seals, then slam your hand to the ground. After performing the necessary seals and biting his thumb, Naruto slammed his hand down with a puff of smoke. A tiny red toad appeared when the smoke had cleared. Howdy Jiraiya, what's up? Jiraiya replied, hey Gamakichi, this is Naruto, the new summoner. Gamakichi hopped around Naruto to get a better look and asked, a new guy eh? After a moment, Gamakichi claimed, I think I like him, and jumped up on Naruto's head. Has he met Dad yet? Nope, you're his first summon. Well, I'm honored. What's your name, by the way? Naruto Namikaze. Gamakichi protruded his tongue next to Naruto's hand and said, I'm Gamakichi, nice to meet you. Reluctantly, Naruto reached for and shook his tongue, nice to meet you too. Alright, I hate to interrupt such an emotional scene, but you still need to summon Bunta and meet him. Who's Bunta? Gamabunta, he is the Toad boss and my dad. Naruto questioned, okay, how do I decide which Toad I summon? Jiraiya responded, unaware that he had just committed a grave error, you'll learn over time, each Toad requires a different amount of chakra. For Bunta, use as much as you can spare. After performing the hand seals and biting his thumb, Naruto slammed his hand to the ground. He exclaimed, Kachiyose no Jutsu. Before he felt himself soar through the air on top of the enormous red toad, who had a pipe hanging from his mouth and a tanto on his back. Holy shit Gaki! Jiraiya cried, turning his gaze away from Gamabunta's head. 2 more toads were standing next to Bunta. A large magenta toad with a shield on his back and a Sasumata in his hands, and a large blue-green toad with a white belly and twin katanas on its back. Gamabunta yelled, why did you summon us Jiraiya? Still amazed that Naruto had raised the 3 largest battle toads, Jiraiya replied, actually Bunta, it wasn't me. Don't bullshit me Jiraiya. Who else could have done it? When Naruto exclaimed, it was me, Gamabunta. Sama. The enormous toad laughed. Good joke, Jiraiya. This is one of the best in ages. But why did you bring Gamaken and Gamahiro as well? Gamakichi stated, it was Naruto dad, he is the new summoner. Really now? Well then why should we allow you to summon us? Bunta responded. Bunta, this is Minato's son. He is a fine shinobi already at the age of 10, Jiraiya replied. I would appreciate your permission to be your summoner, Bunta. Sama. Naruto continued. I like you kid. I tell you what, hold on to me for just 30 minutes and I will allow it. Now Jiraiya seized Gamakichi and sprang swiftly to Gamaken's head. Naruto began to say, what do you? But Bunta quickly leapt away. Is he likely to make it? Gamaken remarked, I'm too stupid to do that, as Bunta took off. Jiraiya answered, yeah, he's strong, he'll be fine. Bunta and Naruto landed in the field next to the others after 30 minutes of the roughest ride he had ever been on. Naruto immediately leapt off Bunta and threw up. Good job, Gaki. You can call us whenever you want. Just be ready to join us for drinks if we aren't actually needed. I'm grateful, Bunta. Sama. As the three enormous toads dispelled themselves, Naruto remarked, I'll remember that. Well, it went more quickly than I anticipated. What elemental affinity do you possess? Jiraiya made a face. Fault when Naruto responded, Futon, Kaden, and Raiden. Gosh, 3 affinities. Impressive, but I'm sure you already know most of that, so I don't have much to teach you. I am aware, since you want to become a pervert, I'll teach you my Totenjutsu, transparent escape technique. I'm not a pervert. Naruto pouted. Jiraiya laughed and said, you might as well admit it, Arrow. Gaki. He then started teaching Naruto the Totenjutsu. Hidden behind a mission report from earlier in the day, Hiruzen was reading his favorite orange book at his desk when the door to his office suddenly flew open. Hiruzen looked up from his book, prepared to curse at whoever had entered without knocking, but there was no one there. As he stood up to shut the door, Hiruzen muttered, damn cheap faulty hinges interrupting my reading. A voice reverberated throughout the room as soon as he arrived at the door and closed it. Give it to me, Arashi. I want you to fill me up. After that, the voice changed and continued, saying, of course, Akina, I will be happy to fill your gaps. Call my name. Who's that? Hiruzen lowered himself to his battle stance and yelled. Oh Arashi, it's wonderful. More difficult. More difficult. Fill me with your liquids. The first voice repeated itself. Yes, Akina, I'm nearly there, the second said. Now get out, Hiruzen yelled once more. Oh my god, absolutely. Arashi. As the man filled her with his fluids, Akina screamed in ecstasy. The first voice said. Oh Akina, that was wonderful, said Arashi as he let his juices flow down her thighs. You had better come clean. Once more, Hiruzen yelled. Are you certain we should do that? He jumped back instantly as Jiraiya and Naruto both shimmered into existence, rolling around on the floor laughing, as a new voice whispered next to his ear. You made Naruto-kun a pervert, Jiraiya. Goddammit. Hiruzen's face flushed greatly as he swore. Repressing his laughter, Jiraiya said, he was just reading from your book, sensei. You wrote it, though. And he was with you all day. Hiruzen replied. After a moment of silence, Naruto lit up another cigarette and remarked, you know it was funny, Gigi. No, it nearly gave me a heart attack. Hiruzen screamed. A few minutes later, despite being in a pocket dimension, Hiruzen and Jiraiya heard Hinata curse Naruto. A few minutes later, the doorway opened again, and Naruto emerged limping with a black eye and a busted lip, holding a pillow and blanket in one arm and the other hanging limp at his side. Naruto smiled and said, sorry, it's just too easy to beat a perv. He then performed a couple handseal and vanished once more before the door to his house appeared, opened, closed, and vanished once more. Can I sleep on the couch tonight, Gigi? Naruto muttered. For a minute, Hiruzen and Jiraiya both collapsed to the ground in laughter at his misfortune before Hiruzen managed to gather himself. Yes, Naruto-kun. I only hope you learned your lesson about using the foolish jutsu of Jiraiya-kun. Gigi, who do you think I am? Of course I didn't, Naruto said, grinning as broadly as his fractured face would allow. Hiruzen shook his head and Jiraiya grinned, saying, you are your father's child, Naruto-kun. A few minutes ago, with Naruto when he discovered Hinata sitting in the living room studying a scroll on Sweden techniques, Naruto stalked over to behind the couch and swiftly put his hands in front of her face. Naruto moved through the house in silence. Eep. After letting out a scream, Hinata turned and used a Juken palm to strike one of Naruto's arms. It's me, Hinata. Chan. As the totem vanished, Naruto let out a scream. "I was afraid of you, Naruto-kun." Hinata yelled this before she started beating the living daylights out of him. "Sorry, Hinata-chan." Naruto's body, which was crumpled on the floor, whimpered out. "HMPH. Please, go, but, right now," as Naruto drugged himself away, Hinata yelled. The following morning, although Naruto's back hurt when he woke up on the couch in Hiruzen's office, all of his other wounds had already healed. Naruto popped his back and sulked to himself, "I can't believe she kicked me out of my own house." Hiruzen laughed and said, "You two act like a married couple already, Naruto-kun." Naruto simply snarled before vanishing into his house to take a shower and prepare for the day. Naruto went to the kitchen as soon as he entered because he could smell breakfast being prepared. Naruto, half concealed behind the doorframe to avoid flying utensils, said timidly, "Hey Hinata-chan." Hinata said in a sing-song voice, "Good morning Naruto-kun." This only made Naruto more anxious. He walked slowly to the table and sat down, responding, "Morning. How was your sleep?" Hinata's voice remained sickly sweet as she asked. Are you still upset about last night?" "Not really." "Obviously not, I couldn't continue to be angry with you." Although Hinata said this, the evil gleam in her eye conveyed a different message. As Hinata brought their breakfast to the table, Naruto remarked, "Gee, good then." After they had finished eating and engaged in small talk, Naruto exclaimed, "Wow, Hinata-chan, that was really good, what did they contain?" Hinata's entire face then took on a sadistic expression as the evil glint in her eyes intensified. "Oh, nothing really, just bacon and pancakes with chocolate chips and laxative." Did you say what?" Naruto's face turned green and his stomach roiled as he spoke. In the same tone she had been using all morning, Hinata answered, "I think you heard me." "Why?" Naruto screamed and fled to the bathroom, where he would spend a considerable amount of time. "I triumph." As she walked out of the house, Hinata exclaimed, beaming broadly. A few wretched hours later, after taking a quick shower and leaving his house to replenish the nutrients that had been forcefully expelled from his body throughout the day, Naruto finally stumbled away from the toilet with a newfound respect for the saying, "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned." He chose to walk rather than shunshining because he was still feeling a little queasy. After a few minutes of his stroll, Naruto turned a corner without thinking and bumped into someone, knocking several grocery bags out of her hands. He immediately apologized and went to assist her in gathering her belongings when he realized who he was, or rather, she recognized him. "Naruto-kun. Hello, how are you?" With an embarrassed smile, Ino said, "I apologize for bumping into you, I wasn't paying attention to my direction." "Damn, I can't believe I just ran into him, he must now despise me." "No worries Ino, I wasn't paying attention either, and I'm sorry for making you drop your things," replied Naruto. As soon as Ino realized he wasn't angry with her, her mind went into overdrive and she devised a cunning plan. She dragged out the "kun" for longer than usual and said, "Well, Naruto-kun," with a seductive smile. "If you truly are sorry, you could take me for lunch after I drop these groceries off at home." Ever virtuous and somewhat naive, Naruto concluded that it wouldn't be an issue if she appeared because he was going to eat anyhow. Unaware that he had accepted her offer of a date, Naruto replied, "Sure Ino, that would be fine by me." "Nice. Let's go after you help me carry these home." With a big smile, Ino grabbed Naruto's arm and ran off after yelling and pushing multiple bags into his arms. The two were discovered at the Yamanaka flower shop a few minutes later, standing in front of a big, blonde man with a ponytail down his back and a spiky flat top. "Hi Daddy, I've returned." As she dragged Naruto to the counter where her father was standing, Ino yelled. "Who's your boyfriend, sweetie?" Inoichi emphasized the word, boyfriend, and then laughed. Ino smiled slyly and said, "This is Naruto, he's not my boyfriend, yet." "Well, nice to meet you Naruto-san." As Ino hurried off to prepare for her date, Naruto retorted, "Likewise Inoichi-sama." Inoichi reached out a hand to confirm his suspicions, thinking, that voice is familiar, he's far too young to be him though." Naruto, recognizing the question in Inoichi's eyes and knowing that he had previously been in Anbu himself, reached out and accepted Inoichi's handshake. The two of them shook hands as if it were a typical greeting, but after they had both grasped each other's hands, they unremarkably ran their pinky finger along the bottom of the other's hand. "Thank you," Inoichi said simply, but he knew Naruto would understand. "I'll be damned, it is him." Just as Naruto was about to respond, he saw Ino turn the corner and give the two a curious glance. Inoichi hurried to keep his daughter from asking, saying, "Oh Ino, I was just thanking Naruto here for helping you bring home the groceries." "That didn't sound like a thank you for helping with chores, thank you," Ino responded. "What makes you say that, too?" Inoichi asked, now getting nervous. "Because it sounded like a thanks for saving my daughter, thank you." "Well," Inoichi began, but Naruto interrupted. "She knows already. We were forced to reveal ourselves on the mission." "I see, Ino, I trust that you will tell no one of this, right?" "Yes, Daddy. Naruto-kun already swore me to secrecy." Inoichi smirked and thought, Naruto-kun, eh? Seems my little girl has the hots for him. At least she picked a good one. However, Ino cut him off before he could continue to make fun of them. She took hold of his hand and dragged him out the door, shouting, "Bye Daddy, Naruto-kun is taking me on a date." Naruto asked sheepishly, "Date? Yay silly, what did you think this was?" Ino started to perspire when Naruto said, I don't know." The couple soon found themselves at a barbecue restaurant close to Ino's home. One of the waiters stopped them as they were about to enter. "We don't serve your kind here. Would you like me to get him away from you, miss?" The man laughed. As the man reached out to seize Naruto, Ino asked, "What the hell is that about? Excuse me, what is your problem? We don't allow filth such as this in our establishment." "What has he ever?" Naruto interrupted, saying, "Don't worry about it, Ino. Let's just go somewhere else." "No, that's not right that he would turn you away for nothing. It's fine." After saying, "It is not for nothing, this child is a duh." Ino abruptly vanished and was found in Naruto's arms a few blocks from the eatery. Before he sat her down, she blushed slightly at being held by him once more. Unaware of the Chan he added to the end of Ino's name, Naruto remarked, "Thanks for standing up for me, Ino. Chan, but like I said, it's fine. We can go somewhere else. I have a feeling that his restaurant will be out of business soon anyway." Back at the barbecue spot, the waiter said, "It is not for nothing. This child is a duh." Just before a puff of smoke appeared. When the smoke had cleared, Kitsune was standing over the body, Ino was gone, and the man's head was on the ground. Before turning to face the Anbu that was now behind him, Kitsune told the deceased man, mentioning the Kyuubi is punishable by death, and your sentence was carried out as such. He said, "Please take him to the morgue. He violated the 9th law," and then vanished in a cloud of smoke. When Naruto was given his clone's memories, he scowled. Laws were laws, and no one was going to step on him anymore, even though he truly hated having to kill people. Seeing his frown, Ino raised her voice. "What's wrong, Naruto-kun?" "It's nothing. Is Ichiraku's okay with you? I'd like to avoid any more conflicts if possible." Ino smiled half-heartedly and said, Sure, I like ramen." She couldn't help but question why Naruto was treated so poorly by the man. Nothing would ruin her date with Naruto-kun, so she put it away as a thought for later. In the darkened room of the Anbu auditorium, Naruto stood before Tora, the Anbu commander, once more. This time, he was dressed in his complete uniform, except for the mask. Itachi was standing opposite Tora, wearing his mask but otherwise wearing the same outfit as Naruto. A tiny smile appeared on Hiruzen's face as he stood just behind them. Even though Naruto knew why he was here, he still felt anxious. Tora's voice was more emotional than usual as he said, "Hello everyone, I'm pleased to welcome you all here today for a passing of the torch ceremony. Today is a historical day for us all, as it gives birth to a new legend. As you all know, Weasel here was the youngest person to ever become a captain amongst our ranks at the age of 13. Tora said, and then took a moment to reflect. Now, after 6 years of exceptional service, I am sad to say that Weasel will be retiring. At the same time, I am happy to say that Weasel's last act will be to promote Kitsune to captain of Delta Squad." Naruto knelt down in front of Itachi, who took out his sword and touched Naruto's shoulder with it. "Kitsune, you have proven yourself worthy time and time again. I trust that you will make a great leader of your squad, and I believe that if you stick with it, a great commander one day. It is my honor to name you my successor. From one legend to the next, I now dub you Kitsune Taiko, as is the English custom of knighting." Itachi took off his mask and threw it lightly in the air as Naruto got back up after being sworn in. Without using any hand seals, Itachi threw out a tiny ball of fire that encased his ancient mask and kept it afloat before directing it toward Naruto. As Itachi spoke once more, Naruto reached a hand beneath the mask and kept it floating while it was still burning. This ritual is to signify the passing of the torch, from one captain to the next. I present to you the youngest man to ever make Anbu captain. Captain of Delta Squad, Namikaze Naruto. Naruto put on his mask at this point and vanished into a whirlpool of flames, only to resurface a few feet away from his initial location, now standing in front of a wall covered in various masks, all of which had fire blazing around them. After putting Itachi's mask on the wall in the next available space, Naruto kneeled in front of it and performed a series of hand seals. He extended an arm and briefly touched the mask while the fire blazed brightly before fading back to just the mask's faint outline. After that, Naruto shunned back to where he had been and spoke with ease. Naruto bowed deeply to Itachi and then to the audience. That ritual is to signify that though Weasel may no longer be among our ranks, he will always carry the will of fire that we strive to represent. I officially accept my nomination as captain, and I appreciate all of your support. I hope that I may lead my squad as much as Weasel has before me. Cheers broke out in the room after the bow. Hiruzen approached Naruto and gave him a shoulder pat, saying, "Congratulations Naruto-kun. You've earned this. Now then, why don't I take you out to eat so we can celebrate?" "Sure thing Gigi." Via Shunshin, Naruto and Hiruzen both materialized in the street in front of Ichiraku's ramen. Naruto saw right away that the interior appeared dark, but he ignored it and proceeded to pull back the curtain, only to be glomped onto from two different directions by two different girls. "A joint? Congratulations Naruto-kun," was uttered by Hinata and Ino. Upon successfully removing the girls, Naruto entered and took a seat at the bar beside a beaming Sasuke, lighting a cigarette. Before giving Naruto a back pat, Sasuke remarked, "Congrats on becoming captain, but don't think for a moment that means you could beat me. And that shit is gonna kill you, you know." Then he replied, "Making captain doesn't change a thing. I can kick your ass now same as ever. And no it's fine, rather soothing. You should try it sometime." I doubt it." Sasuke laughed, and then there was the sound of a chopstick tapping against glass. Hiruzen was standing in the center of the room when everyone turned to face the source. "Thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate Naruto-kun's promotion. Now, a toast to the new captain." Before they all raised their glasses in the air, Seiuchi swiftly filled everyone's glasses with sake, with the exception of Hinata, Ino, and Ayame, who received tea. Everyone chanted, "Takitsune, Taiko," before consuming their beverages. Before his nose began to bleed a little, Jiraiya exclaimed, "Congratulations, Ero. Gaki, you'll be beating them off with a. Ah, who am I kidding, you've already got two. You'll be swamped now." "They're not my girlfriends, Ero. Senin," shouted Naruto, mockingly. Jiraiya winked and said, "Sure, whatever Gaki." Then his expression returned to seriousness. He concluded by giving Naruto a gift while wearing his trademark lecherous grin, and Naruto put the small orange book in a pocket in his pants. "Seriously though kid, you know your dad would be proud of you right? He never was Anbu himself but he would still be proud. Anyways, I want you to have this, it won't be in stores for at least another month." Naruto grinned and gave the man a hug, saying, "Thanks, Ero, Senin." Jiraiya winked and said, "You're welcome, Ero, Gaki. Use it well." He then went off to drink himself to insanity. As the party continued, Jiraiya was beaten and staggered off to the red light district. Sasuke was taken home by Itachi after learning why 11-year-olds don't drink. Hiruzen left after telling Naruto that he had to meet him at 8 in the morning, and, finally, Naruto and Hinata walked Ino home before retiring to bed themselves. The following morning Hiruzen greeted Naruto. "Good morning Naruto-kun." Naruto emerged in a whirlpool of flames in his office. "Morning Gigi. Sama, what did you need me for?" Like magic, a young man wearing a leopard mask who looked to be around 19 emerged from the shadows as Hiruzen said, "First off, I'd like for you to meet the new member of your squad." "Take that as you will, wink wink." "Hello Kitsune. Taiko, I am Mumi Shiryo. A.N. It means nameless fodder." As the two shook hands, Naruto remarked, "Nice to meet you Mumi, it is an honor to have you on my squad." Mumi vanished in a whirl of leaves, and Hiruzen said, "Okay, Hyo, you may be dismissed." Hiruzen performed a few hand seals after Mumi left, and the room briefly glowed purple before the glow subsided. "Now then, I have your first mission as commander. It will be a hands mission, and if you are discovered, you will be labeled as traitors and executed as such. Do you accept?" Hiruzen said in a harsh tone. Naruto, in mission mode now, said, "I do." After going through a few more hand seals and slamming his hand against his desk, Hiruzen was joined by Itachi, who was dressed in typical Konoha attire. With a little bow, Itachi said, "Hokage. Sama. Itachi-kun, Naruto-kun has accepted the mission. Care to explain?" "Of course. The mission, simply put, will be to assassinate Danzo Shimura. We have substantial evidence that Danzo is a traitor to this village and has been working alongside Orochimaru. After the council meeting tonight, your team will follow him home, kill him, and leave no evidence behind. Do you understand? Hi. Was Naruto's emotionless response. But he was worried inside. In addition to the fact that this would be his first mission as commander, the mission was large and he had a new man on his squad with whom they had no prior experience. Hiruzen lifted the privacy seal and said, "Okay, then, the meeting is at 1900. Dismissed." Naruto vanished in a whirlpool of flames. When Naruto returned to Anbu headquarters, he called his team together so they could train with the new man. Naruto wasn't very impressed with the man, and they trained for the next 4 hours. Being in Anbu made it clear that he was good, but he wasn't exceptional. Although he fell short of the rest of his team, it was a big shoe to fill because Delta Squad is the envy of all the other squads. All Naruto could hope for was to survive tonight and catch up to Delta's standards. Naruto instructed his team to meet him at headquarters at 1800 following the training, and they all went their separate ways to recuperate. The Delta Squad showed up inside Anbu headquarters in their various shunshuns at precisely 1800. After giving the team a briefing on their strategy for the next hour, Naruto once again shunned them outside the council chamber, where they remained hidden and waited for Danzo to depart. The various council members left for their homes after the meeting was adjourned approximately 1.5 hours later. Activating his Sharingan at once, Naruto easily selected Danzo from the crowd. Naruto whispered, "Target in sight." His radio responded with 3 brief clicks. "Move out." 3 clicks are received once more. For the next half hour, the team followed the crippled bastard home while hiding in the shadows, on rooftops, and in trees. At last, he reached his destination. Unaware that he was being pursued, he merely gave a nod to the 2 rude agents concealed in the darkness near his gate, and they promptly opened it to let him in. Naruto whispered, barely audible over their radios, 2 by the gate, 1 on the roof, 1 by the front door, 1 by the back. "I'll get the gate, Neko take the roof. Taka front, Hio back." No sounds. They got 3 confirmations. Move. When Naruto finished speaking, he materialized behind the first gate guard and swiftly slashed his tanto to remove his head. After catching the head and body, he silently dropped them to the ground and did the same with the other. Yugao, Sasuke, and Mumi all completed their tasks simultaneously before vanishing back into the darkness to ensure Danzo was unaware of their presence. After a few seconds, Naruto was certain they were fine and leapt swiftly, landing next to the big house's back door. Using his Sharingan, he quickly scanned the house to make sure Danzo was in the shower and that there were no seals to be concerned about. As he used a Kaiden jutsu to melt the door lock, Naruto thought, a bit too confident in his fake Anbu, isn't he? Before Naruto completed the soundproofing of the entire house and hid outside Danzo's bedroom, waiting for him to emerge, the 4-Man team hurried inside. Naruto was waiting in the shadows when the man emerged from his restroom a few minutes later. Before Danzo could fall to the ground and vanish in a puff of smoke, Naruto pulled a kunai without hesitation and stabbed it deep into the base of his skull. Naruto screamed, "Shit!" as he barely dodged a wind blade that crashed through the wall he was near. Then Danzo laughed as he emerged through the wall hole. Before rushing through a set of one-handed seals and shouting, "Futon! Shinkagyoku! Vacuum spheres!" Danzo calmly said, "So the weak old bastard is so scared of me that he sent a squad of Anbu to take me out. Tisk! I may have been born at night, but it wasn't last night. You won't take me down so easily." He then took a deep breath and let it out, sending several streams of razor-sharpened wind in Naruto's direction. The hallway they were in exploded outwards as Naruto swiftly performed his own hand seals and yelled, "Futon! Daitapa!" as he blew out a huge wall of wind that stopped Danzo's attack. Danzo started a series of hand seals again, but he was unable to complete them because he ducked a flame bullet from Sasuke. Danzo was startled when he saw a sword swinging in his direction while he was still in the air from the dodge. The sword, which he was unable to avoid, cut through his heart and into the side of his chest before stopping when it struck his spine. When his body briefly shimmered before vanishing, Yugao swiftly kicked him off her blade and retreated, ready to burn the body. She was quite startled, but she pretended it was a seal to avoid being questioned if he was caught. That is, until Danzo reappeared in front of her, his right arm and face bandaged, exposing 2 fully grown Sharingans, a Mangekyo Sharingan in his right eye, and what looked like 8 closed eye sockets on his arm. He sprang back towards Naruto and Sasuke and kicked her through the wall before she could even react. Mumi leapt in front of Danzo just as he was about to approach them, sending him flying through the wall and into what looked like a dojo. As soon as possible, Mumi leapt through the hole and briefly engaged Danzo in taijutsu combat before being overpowered and knocked back out of the way. Before Sasuke yelled, Kaden, Hosenka no Jutsu, and Naruto yelled, Futon Kaden, Kajiurashi Rasengan, Firestorm Rasengan, Mumi heard a whistling sound and was knocked away from Danzo. Before Danzo could react, Naruto appeared in front of him holding a Futon Rasengan. The tiny fireballs Sasuke fired merged to the Rasengan and started to swirl around it, growing in size and intensity as Naruto started to push the attack home. Naruto's attack found its target without Danzo's ability to dodge, driving deep into his chest before exploding out in a ball of fire and blowing out the side of his chest. After witnessing Danzo withstand Yugo's attack, Naruto jumped back, remaining vigilant. As expected, Danzo's body quickly shimmered and vanished before resurfacing in front of Naruto with 9 closed sockets on his arm and 1 open Sharingan. Futon. Daitapa! He exclaimed as he swiftly went through some hand seals and unleashed a powerful wind at Naruto, who was unable to dodge in time and was hurled back out into the hallway. While Danzo was preoccupied, Sasuke jumped in and gave him a roundhouse kick to the head. Danzo blocked the kick, spun, and then threw his own into Sasuke's ribcage, sending him flying back towards the hall. Suddenly Yugao showed up, grabbed Sasuke, sat him down, and the two of them flew back at Danzo. Before shouting, Kaden, Gokaku no Jutsu, and blasting out a massive stream of fire in Danzo's direction, Sasuke entered first and proceeded through hand seals. Danzo then retaliated with a Daitapa, which stopped the attack before it could reach him. Danzo felt a presence behind him at that moment, and he swiftly withdrew a kunai and turned around just in time to stop Yugao's katana from slashing downward. However, he was not quick enough to dodge the 2 clones that appeared at his sides, each of whom had upward slashes. Both clones were able to cut into his spine and through his ribs. Then the clones vanished, and Danzo collapsed to the ground, lifeless. Once more, Yugao, who was not easily duped, kept a considerable distance from Danzo as his body started to shimmer once more. Similar to the previous 3 times, Danzo vanished and then reappeared at the scene of his most recent murder, with 10 eye sockets closed on his arm, before rushing back toward Yugao. Yugao raised her arm to block Danzo's kick, but she was unable to do so because Naruto replaced her, dodged his kick, and sent another Futon Rasengan through his heart and into his chest. Danzo started laughing, which surprised him, as Naruto pulled his bloodied arm out. Before the seals appeared around Naruto and himself, Danzo yelled, well, you managed to kill me. I can't say that I'm shocked, but at least I'll live in peace knowing I take you to hell with me. Ura Shisho Fuin, reverse 4 symbols sealing technique. He ripped off his shirt, exposing 4 square symbols across his chest. Naruto attempted to leap back out of the way but was unable to do so. Naruto screamed, shit, you bastard, as the 4 seals began to transform into a huge black sphere. As Naruto accepted his impending death, he thought, well fuck. I can't believe this is how it ends. I'm only 11 years old and I die on the first mission I get to lead. Some captain I am. However, a voice from a distance interrupted his thoughts. Mumi yelled, Taiko. As he noticed the sphere encircling the 2, he acted quickly, substituting Naruto for himself just as the seal was fully formed, trapping him alongside Danzo. Naruto was in complete shock. One moment he was reliving his brief life in his head, the next he heard a voice in the distance, then he felt a strange tug on his body, and finally he found himself outside the seal, watching Mumi die in his place. He swore in anger as he changed into his one-tailed chakra shroud and created a futon Rasengan in his right hand. No, goddammit Hyo, why would you do that? He emitted. In an instant, he vanished and resurfaced next to the big, solid black sphere, pushing his palm forward. The seal glowed golden, then reverted to black, and vanished just as he was ready to strike it. Because of his momentum, Naruto flew through the area where the sphere had been and struck the wall. After attaching itself to the wall, his demon-fueled Futon Rasengan burst into a massive cyclone that blew through the next 2 rooms and all the way to the house's exterior. Naruto immediately dropped to his knees, slammed his fist into the floor, and cursed until he had penetrated the flooring and was pounding the foundation underneath. Then, in an attempt to console him, Sasuke approached and placed a hand on his shoulder. Calm down man, it's okay. That was what he wanted to do, he did it of his own free will. Naruto's voice crackled as he started to cry. No goddammit, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have gotten caught in the first place. What the fuck kind of leader am I to allow my men to die on my first damn mission? He yelled. It's okay Taiko, come on, we'll talk about this later, we need to go. After that, Naruto became somewhat composed, but his voice still carried sadness. He continued by saying, "You're right, I can't forget that I am expected to set an example. Taka, you and I will burn the house's interior to get rid of the evidence. Neko, destroy the body." After a few hand seals and a nod, Yugao blew out a stream of flames that engulfed Danzo's body, blowing out the fire for a few more seconds until nothing remained of Danzo. While the house burned all around them, Naruto and Sasuke returned to their separate sides of the house and started shooting fireballs until they met Yugao in the center. Before the two nodded and vanished, Naruto ordered, "You two go on, I'll meet you at the back door in just a second." He then knelt down and said a brief prayer for Mumi before getting back up and saying bluntly, "Kaden. Karyu Enden no Jutsu." A huge dragon made of flames erupted from his mouth, tearing through the rest of the house before shooting out the roof, causing a huge explosion in a cave in the roof. "Gosh, he's still inside," Yugao let out a half-scream as the house collapsed. After witnessing the suicide of his best friend, Sasuke was too shocked to even speak. The two were on the verge of collapsing when they sensed heat coming from behind them. They turned in time to see Naruto emerge from a fire whirlpool. Naruto simply nodded toward the main street and said, "I decided to make sure there was no evidence left. Another squad is coming. When we arrived to investigate a disturbance we heard in the area, we discovered Danzo being attacked by multiple root agents. We killed them back, but they were able to kill him." Yugao and Sasuke just nodded before following Naruto out front to meet the new squad. Naruto explained what had happened to their squad captain, who believed it. He and his team promptly started repairing the damage by putting out the fires and chasing off the rubberneckers. I don't know if any of you have heard the term, but it's a term used to describe nosy people who come to emergencies just to see what's going on. Naruto dismissed his team and proceeded to report to the Hokage. Naruto.kun. 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 Hinata said this while glancing at Naruto, who had been aloof and appeared to be depressed, though she wasn't sure what it was, ever since returning from his mission the previous evening. Naruto continued to gaze at the wall and said, "HN. What's the matter, Naruto.kun? Nothing, don't tell me lies." "I'm not." "Bullshit." Hinata gave him a face slap while saying this. Then, to make himself appear like a fish, Naruto repeatedly opened and closed his mouth. "Want to tell me what's wrong now?" Though it wasn't really a question, Hinata asked. Naruto started crying for the first time in more than 3 years. "I'm a failure, Hinata-chan." After that, Hinata embraced Naruto and allowed him to sob into her shoulder, where they remained until they both fainted. Hinata was the first to wake up the following morning, blushing as she realized how close she was to Naruto. She then recalled the previous evening and how distressed he had been. What might be the matter with him? He's never looked like this to me. Perhaps I ought to go speak with Gigi. Sama. As Hinata examined Naruto's sleeping form, she pondered. Then, taking care not to wake him, she walked out the door and straight into the Hokage's office. "How are you today, Hinata?" "Good morning." As soon as she entered, Hiruzen said. "I'm okay, but I need to talk to you about Naruto." "What is it?" Since returning home last night, he has appeared to be quite depressed. On his mission, did something happen? When Naruto's mission was mentioned, Hiruzen appeared to wince before turning to face her and stating, "Yes, it's bad, but I can't tell you anything about it. Naruto.kun holds himself responsible for the death of one of his men. When I saw him last night, he was having a hard time, so you should really try to comfort him." As Hinata turned and returned to their home, she saw Naruto awake and lying on the couch, staring up at the ceiling once more. "I see, thanks Gigi. Sama." Naruto.kun. "I'm sorry for getting angry last night, I didn't know. I went and talked to Gigi and he told me what happened." Hinata saw that Naruto's once bright blue eyes had become dull and glazed over, revealing all of his pain, as he simply turned to face her and locked eyes with her. She walked over and sat on the edge of the couch, stroking his hair and saying softly, "Naruto.kun, it's okay, it's not your fault." He tensed at first, but then relaxed as she went on. "It is my fault, he's dead and I caused it, be quiet, it's not your fault, Naruto.kun. All shinobi, particularly Anbu, are aware that they could die at any time when they enlist." After a while, Naruto passed out again, and Hinata went outside to speak to the Hokage once more. "It doesn't matter, it should have been me," he whispered before he started crying once more. "Gigi. Sama, is there anything you can do to help Naruto.kun? He's not getting better." "Unfortunately, no, I'm not the right person to help him, and he treats me like his grandfather. Maybe it will help if I have Sasuke.kun come talk to him." Hinata said, "Okay, thanks." She went back inside after realizing Naruto was still asleep and took a shower. When she returned a few minutes later, fortunately fully clothed, she saw Sasuke and Itachi entering the room. "Hi Sasuke.kun, Itachi.san. Hey Hinata, how is Naruto doing? He holds himself responsible for the death of one of his men last night. I believe you would be better off because I tried to speak with him but I'm not sure what happened." "I understand. Are you heading somewhere? Because we are going to discuss a secret that is classified as SS rank. Don't think I'm attempting to force you to leave your home. If you weren't leaving, I would simply need to take him to a different room." "Don't worry about it Sasuke.kun. I was about to go into town for a while." "Okay then, see ya later." Following Hinata's departure, Itachi performed several hand seals, causing the room to briefly glow purple before returning to its usual state. Shaking the blonde awake, Sasuke said, "Hey Naruto," in his best attempt at a gentle voice. "HNN Itachi. Sasuke. Do you intend to regain your position as captain? I certainly don't deserve it," Naruto uttered, his voice displaying signs of depression. "No, Naruto.kun. As your friends, we came to support you through this," Itachi said softly, expressing his anger, happiness, sadness, boredom, and excitement. "I'm not worthy of assistance. Mumi was killed as a result of my negligence. Naruto.kun, stop blaming yourself so much. As shinobi, particularly those of us in Anbu, we are aware that death is a possibility at any moment. Mumi respected you, so he voluntarily did what he did to save you. You act in a way that offends his memory. I lost a lot of men and did a lot of things that I'm not proud of during my time as captain," Itachi said, almost trembling at the memory of the time he exterminated half of his family, "but I never let it get to me. You need to move on and accept this. Honor the sacrifice he made for you and let it strengthen you. It's a requirement of the job, Naruto." Sasuke added, "We were aware last night that it was an S-rank mission and that we might not succeed. It was my first time serving as captain, and I made a stupid error that led to his death. Goddammit, he ought to have just let me die." Naruto began with the same dejected tone, but by the end, his eyes had turned red with black slits, and his voice was more angry. As they started to move away from the couch, Sasuke remarked, "Naruto, calm down, don't blame yourself. It is, everything, me, wrong." As he got to his feet, Naruto kicked his couch back and through the next two walls, into his bedroom, while screaming, "I murdered him." As his features grew more savage, a red chakra tail emerged behind him. "Goddamn, I should have been the one." As he fell to his knees, the chakra intensified and grew another tail. Sasuke and Itachi were now very concerned and had retreated against the wall to avoid the tails that were tearing up the house. "Why didn't he simply let me pass away?" The intensity of the chakra emanating from him had now essentially torn the room they were in and the bedroom that was now connected because of his outburst. Two more tails shot out as his eyes went completely white and his skin started to peel off. Naruto began to say, "Why?" but halted when Hiruzen rushed through the door and placed a paper tag on his forehead more quickly than the Sharingan could follow. As Sasuke watched the door fly open and Naruto fall into Hiruzen's arms, he thought, "So fast, that is why they call him the god of shinobi. Nothing in between, even with his Sharingan active." What took place? When Hiruzen asked, Itachi activated his Mangekyo, looked directly into Hiruzen's eyes, and used a Sharingan genjutsu to reenact the scene. Hiruzen said, "I see." He then turned to face the now demolished house and said, "Oh no, Hinata won't be pleased. Anyway, you two should wait until he awakens and attempt to speak with him once more because I have repressed the demonic chakra." Before leaving, Hiruzen said, "Just put one of these on his body somewhere if he loses control." It's unbelievable that Hokage Sama moved so quickly that I was unable to even follow it with my Sharingan, and Naruto destroyed his entire house with chakra alone. "I still have a lot of catching up to do," Sasuke remarked. Itachi prodded him in the forehead and reassured him, "Don't worry, little brother. You have plenty of time to get stronger. But for the time being, we must focus on assisting Naruto.kun. Yay, I really hope we can get through. I hate seeing him so messed up." Before Naruto woke up again, the two took the couch out of his bedroom and sat there in silence for an additional hour. What took place? Naruto muttered. "You used the Kyuubi's chakra and it lashed out, causing this." "Oh." Naruto then went back into his depressed state. "You must put an end to this, Naruto. It's not you. You should be the one who is happy." Sasuke remarked, "Don't blame yourself for what happens, it's part of life." "No, I only hold myself responsible because I am to blame. If I would have." Sasuke cut him off with a quick right hook, sending him falling to the ground after hitting the couch arm. Goddammit, Naruto, quit placing the blame on yourself. You are now sneering at Mumi's sacrifice because he wanted to die for you. To ensure that it doesn't happen again, live and become stronger. Pay tribute to what he did for you. With his temper now at an all-time high, Sasuke screamed. Life is a bitch. We have to accept it and move on. Taiko, I know you're stronger than this. If only slightly, this outbreak helped Naruto come around. Naruto's tone was flat as he said, I guess you're right, I'm not happy about it but I can't just sit around and do nothing forever. Exactly. You must move on, as I mentioned. In order for you to go emo on us, Mumi did not give his life. We should go to Ichiraku's, which should help you feel better. Naruto went to take a shower and said, sure, just let me get cleaned up real quick. Before they left the house in quest of food, Naruto reappeared from the guest shower a few minutes later, fully clothed in his khaki shorts and polo shirt. His had been destroyed during the rampage. After a week to give Naruto some time to calm down, Hiruzen had given Delta Squad the week off. Naruto spent most of the week with Hinata at his house, which had been repaired, and by the 5th day, he felt almost normal again, even starting to train again. By the end of the week, he was back to normal again, though he still thought about the incident occasionally and assumed he always would. At the moment, the 3-man Delta Squad is practicing a basic game of capture the flag at Anbu headquarters. Are you ready? As he strapped an orange flag, AN, which is a cross between capture the flag and flag football, to his waist and set a timer for 15 minutes, Naruto posed the question. After 3 hours, the person with the fewest points purchases lunch. Proceed, Naruto said as both Yugao and Sasuke charged at him. Sasuke stopped halfway and began doing hand seals while Yugao continued on. Just as she was in front of him and about to slash down, she phased from existence, revealing a kunai flying towards him before Sasuke said, Kaden. Ryuka no Jutsu, Dragon Fire. Sasuke released a stream of fire that appeared to both accelerate and follow the flaming kunai. Naruto easily avoided the flaming kunai before performing his own seals and yelling at Futon. Taju Renkuden. Multiple drilling air bullets. As he took a deep breath and started to shoot several volleyball-sized wind bullets in Sasuke's direction. Sasuke attempted to dodge as many of the wind bullets as he could, but eventually one of them landed a quick hit on his rib cage. The attack sliced him multiple times and knocked him back off his feet, causing him to grunt in pain. Before she could grab hold of the orange flag and kick him in the chest, sending him flying across the field, Yugao leapt up from the ground in front of Naruto and slashed upwards with her sword, cutting him across his chest as soon as he stopped the wind bullets. She swiftly fastened the flag to her waist in order to avoid a huge fireball that Sasuke had thrown at her. She dodged, but before she could reach the ground, Sasuke came up next to her and kicked her in the face, sending her crashing into the ground. Then Sasuke leapt down, snatched the flag from her, and attached it as he went. After gaining sufficient distance, he lowered himself into a defensive position and waited for an assault. Not long after, he felt a presence above him and sprang to the side just in time to dodge Naruto's Kodachi's downward slash. Sasuke had to dodge once more as Naruto swiftly corrected himself and turned to throw multiple kunai in his direction. After landing, Sasuke launched an attack, charging in at Naruto with his Tonto. Sasuke slashed at Naruto's clavicle, but Naruto parried the blow. This went on for a brief moment before Naruto prevailed, seizing the flag and using a Rasengan to stab Sasuke in the stomach. Yugo's Mikazuki no Mai attacked Naruto from 3 sides just as he was blowing Sasuke away. With only minor wounds, Naruto escaped the attacks. After that, Yugao and Naruto engaged in a losing Kenjutsu battle. However, just as she was about to win, the buzzer sounded, signaling the conclusion of round 1. Naruto sighed, "Woo, that was a close one, but point for me." Yugao swore, "Damn it, another minute and I would have had you." Naruto teased, "Coulda woulda shoulda Neko. Chan." Considering that he lost the following round, this was probably a bad idea. And the subsequent one. Hell hath no wrath like that of a woman who has been scorned. After the allotted 3 hours, Yugao had won 2 of the matches, Sasuke had won 1, and Naruto had won 3. Sasuke felt a phantom pain in his wallet as Naruto yelled, "Lunch is on Sasuke today," as his stomach growled audibly. It was a well-founded intuition. Naruto chose the location because he had won, and it was obviously Ichiraku's. After about 30 bowls, Sasuke was emptying his wallet while anime tears were streaming down his face, and Naruto was kicked back with an ecstatic smile. As a cloud of dust coughed out of his wallet, Sasuke cried in his mind, "Why me?"
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.